Chapter 28. Although the eye of truth could not see through things, Su Qin was able to clearly see the aura within the carriage. There was indeed someone sitting in the carriage. However, it was not one person but two. Furthermore, one of the auras was unstable. She should have been poisoned. Aside from the poisoned person, the other person's aura was very young. She was at most 10 years old. The poisoned person is Imperial Concubine Li? Su Qin guessed to himself as a thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. Over the past 10 years, although Su Qin had not left the Shaolin Temple, he had heard the discussions of the other disciples. Quite a few of them were related to the imperial family of the Tang dynasty. At present, the Emperor of Tang only favored Imperial Concubine Li. For this reason, he had not even summoned the Empress for many years. If it were not for the fact that Imperial Concubine Li had only given birth to one princess, the imperial palace would have been thrown into chaos long ago. But even so, as the Emperor of Tang continued to grow older, the court was filled with hidden struggles. The various princes were already at loggerheads. Someone in the imperial harem poisoned Imperial Concubine Li. With no other choice, Imperial Concubine Li came to the Shaolin Temple in the name of worshipping Buddha. On the surface it's to recuperate, but in reality it's to avoid disaster? In just a few moments, Su Qin was able to roughly guess why Imperial Concubine Li had come to the Shaolin Temple. In truth, for someone to be able to so brazenly poison Imperial Concubine Li in the imperial harem, it was likely related to those nobles. Even the Emperor of Tang could do nothing about it. He could only have Imperial Concubine Li come to the Shaolin Temple. From this, it could be seen just how chaotic the court had become. However, Imperial Concubine Li coming to the Shaolin Temple to avoid disaster was definitely the correct choice. The Shaolin Temple was a major martial arts sect, and had never interfered with the court. As long as Imperial Concubine Li could enter the Shaolin Temple, she would basically be safe. No matter how capable the nobles in the imperial harem were, they could not reach into the Shaolin Temple. The Emperor of Tang himself probably knew that it was very likely that Imperial Concubine Li would be rejected by the Shaolin Temple. Thus, he had specially issued a decree to protect Imperial Concubine Li. It said that the battles in Jianghu are fierce, but compared to the palace, it's not even worth mentioning. Su Qin sighed with emotion. Inside the jade carriage, aside from Consort Li, the other person should be her daughter, the current princess of the Empire of Tang. Su Qin thought silently. If Imperial Concubine Li really came to the Shaolin Temple to avoid disaster, it was impossible for her daughter to be left in the imperial palace. Just as Su Qin was deep in thought, the jade carriage slowly entered the Shaolin Temple. For the sake of preventing his disciples from disturbing Imperial Concubine Li, Abbot Huiwen specially gave a bamboo forest to the side of the courtyard to Imperial Concubine Li. The chores yard was located in the corner of the Shaolin Temple, and the bamboo forest was even more remote than the chores yard. Aside from the disciples of the chores yard, it was impossible for any other disciples to pass by. Abbot Huiwen had considered everything very thoroughly. Since he had accepted Imperial Concubine Li, he needed to take care of her as much as possible. Otherwise, wouldn't he be trying to please both sides? Although Abbot Huiwen also realized that the Shaolin Temple might be in big trouble, there was nothing he could do. After all, he couldn't go against the Emperor of Tang's orders, could he? Ever since Imperial Concubine Li's group moved into the Shaolin Temple, the heads of the courts warned their disciples not to go near the bamboo forest, especially the chores yard. The bamboo forest was right next to the chores yard. As long as they looked after the chores yard, there wouldn't be any problems. After that, Su Qin resumed his normal life. Although Imperial Concubine Li's group had joined the Shaolin Temple, for the Shaolin Temple there was basically no change. Su Qin was even more so. He cultivated when he should, and signed in when he should. On this day, Su Qin was about to go to the Bodhi court to sign in. When he passed by the bamboo forest, he suddenly heard a clear voice. "Little monk, wait a moment." Su Qin turned his head and saw a little girl, who looked like she was carved out of jade, running over with a bang. "Benefactor." Su Qin looked down and said calmly. This girl was Imperial Concubine Li's daughter, and she was also a princess of the Tang dynasty. "You left so quickly." The little girl panted as she looked at Su Qin with her big eyes. "Benefactor, it's getting late. You should go back and rest." Su Qin naturally couldn't be bothered to have anything to do with the princess of the Empire of Tang. In Su Qin's mind, whoever dared to disturb his leisurely life at this moment would be killed with a slap. I just rested. The little girl looked at Su Qin carefully and said pitifully, "Can you chat with me for a while? It's too boring here. I don't even have someone to talk to." Benefactor. I also have something to do. Su Qin couldn't be bothered to waste time on the little girl, and directly turned around and left. Only the little girl was left standing there alone. This little monk. The little girl wrinkled her little nose. No matter where she was, even in the palace, everyone who saw her was timid and uneasy. But Su Qin didn't have such a reaction. Instead, it seemed that he didn't care about her identity at all. At this moment, Your Highness, are you okay? A palace maid hurriedly walked to the little girl and asked in panic. I'm fine. The little girl shook her head and suddenly asked, Is Eunuch Hong powerful? Eunuch Hong? The palace maid was slightly stunned and quickly said, Eunuch Hong is a red-clothed eunuch personally appointed by His Majesty. He's a second-grade eunuch. Even in the palace, he's one of the top masters. How can he not be powerful? Eunuch Hong was the eunuch who escorted imperial concubine Li to the Shaolin Temple. Over the years, if it weren't for Eunuch Hong, imperial concubine Li would have died countless times. In fact, on this trip to the Shaolin Temple, if it weren't for Eunuch Hong intimidating the thieves along the way, imperial concubine Li probably wouldn't have been able to reach the Shaolin Temple at all. So it's like that. The little girl nodded thoughtfully. After getting rid of the princess of the Tang dynasty, Su Qin once again came to the Bodhi court. System sign in. Su Qin said in his heart. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the pill Spirit Concentrating Pill. Spirit Concentrating Pill? Su Qin's pupils shrank slightly. The Spirit Concentrating Pill was a legendary pill of the Shaolin Temple. One might not be able to refine even after hundreds or thousands of years. In the past decade or so, Su Qin didn't know how many spirit-accumulating pills, great returning pills, but this was the first time he obtained the Spirit Concentrating Pill. When a martial artist reached the first grade, if they wanted to advance further, they needed to nurture their own spirit. When the spirit was nurtured to the extreme, one would be able to condense divine will. Divine will had endless uses. It could interfere with external objects, investigate the surroundings, and even kill people from a distance. A first-grade martial artist could only be considered to have touched the myth realm bottleneck after truly condensing divine will. As for breaking through this bottleneck, one would need to rely on divine will, physical body, and inner strength. But no matter what, once a first-grade martial artist condensed divine will, it was equivalent to crossing over to a whole new level. In the pugilistic world, this level was called peak first grade. A first-grade great grandmaster was extremely rare, let alone a peak first grade. Any peak first grade had the potential to break through the myth realm bottleneck. And if one wanted to condense divine will, other than relying on time and spending hundreds of years to comprehend it, there was another way. Chapter 29. I didn't expect to get a spirit concentration pill. Su Qin was overjoyed and a smile appeared on his face. Since stepping into grade 1, he didn't know how many spirit accumulation pills he had taken to nourish the spirit in his body. But the result was far from satisfactory. Although his spirit was steadily growing, he was still far away from condensing his divine sense. It seems that whether or not he can condense his divine sense doesn't depend on how much spirit he has. Originally, Su Qin was prepared to spend decades slowly condensing his divine sense. But now, after getting the spirit concentration pill, Su Qin realized that it won't take that long. I can't rush. Before taking the spirit concentration pill, I should adjust my state to the best. Su Qin didn't immediately take the spirit concentration pill. Instead, he calmed down and considered the many details of condensing his divine sense. Although the spirit concentration pill can help a grade 1 great grandmaster condense his divine sense. But the most important thing is still Su Qin himself. No matter how heaven-defying the spirit concentration pill is, after all, an auxiliary effect. Moreover, in case something goes wrong in condensing his divine sense, causing Su Qin's divine sense to be damaged, the impact would be endless. If his body is damaged, he can slowly recuperate and take medicine according to the symptoms of his body. But if his divine sense is damaged, he can only rely on himself. Thinking of this, Su Qin decided that during this time, in addition to signing in, he would slow down his cultivation time a little to prepare for taking the spirit concentration pill. Next, the days continued to pass unhurriedly. The lamp in the Shaolin Temple made Su Qin almost unable to feel the passage of time. The only difference from before was that the princess of the Empire of Tang seemed to be sticking to Su Qin. Whenever Su Qin passed by the bamboo forest, she would secretly follow him. Su Qin was in a good mood after getting the spirit concentration pill. If he had nothing to do, he would chat with the princess of the Empire of Tang to pass the time. In the process of chatting, Su Qin also learned some secrets of the imperial palace through the princess of the Empire of Tang. According to the description of the princess of the Empire of Tang, the Emperor of Tang is really dying and can't hold on for more than a few years. The princes in the court have different thoughts, and the princes also take the opportunity to seize power. It can be imagined that once Emperor Tang really passes away, these princes will desperately fight for the position of the 9 and 5 emperors. Of course, this has nothing to do with Su Qin. Even if the world outside Su the emperors estique. Est. Test. Su Qin looked at the princess in surprise. Assessed. Then what's your name? Su Qin asked casually. The little girl thought for a while and said seriously, I want Wu. Su Qin repeated. Yes, because I want to be a real martial artist. I want to control my own destiny. The little girl clenched her fists. Little monk, what do you want in the future? The little girl suddenly asked. What do you want? Su Qin thought for a while and said seriously, invincible. The little girl almost laughed out loud. Invincible? Even in the imperial palace, the purple-clothed eunuch who was always by the Emperor of Tang's side and intimidated all the ministers and princes with his own strength would not dare to claim that he was invincible. Time flew by. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Tonight I can take the divine concentration pill. Su Qin sat cross-legged and swallowed the divine concentration pill in one gulp. The divine concentration pill melted in his mouth and instantly disappeared into his body. Su Qin was not surprised at all. The divine concentration pill's effect was only on the spirit. The body could not absorb the divine concentration pill. Whoosh! Inhale. Su Qin only felt the medicinal power of the divine concentration pills turn into a stream and slowly wrapped around his spirit, compressing and condensing it. Buzz! As Su Qin's spirit continued to compress and condense, an invisible mental wave slowly fluctuated in his mind and showed signs of spreading into his body. The next moment, boom! There was a sudden roar in Su Qin's spiritual plane. The divinity that was constantly being compressed almost condensed into a dot, and finally exploded, turning into an invisible wave that swept out in all directions. This wave was invisible and intangible, but it was real. I finally condensed my divine will. Su Qin slowly opened his eyes. At this time, the world in front of him was different from the world he saw before. Within a radius of several hundred feet, every blade of grass, every tree, every flower, and every leaf fell into Su Qin's eyes. Compared to the insight of the Eye of Truth, Su Qin was able to completely control everything within a radius of several hundred feet with his divine will. Let's see how far my divine will can cover. With a thought, Su Qin's divine will, which originally covered a radius of several hundred feet, began to slowly spread out in all directions. After a short test, Su Qin discovered that the best range for his divine will was a radius of several hundred feet around him. As for further areas, his divine will's probing started to become blurry. Continue spreading. Su Qin wanted to test the limits of his divine will. In an instant, his divine will turned into an invisible wave, like a wave of air, and instantly swept across the distance. During this period, his divine will swept through the Chor's yard, the small hill, and even the bamboo forest where Consort Li lived. Within the bamboo forest, in an exquisite attic, Consort Li's face was pale as she lay on the bed. The heavy curtains fell, and from the outside, only a blurry figure could be seen. Damned bitch! Consort Li's gaze was cold as she squeezed out these words from between her teeth. Your Highness, please don't be angry. Eunuch Hong immediately said. Although the devil's snare poison has been suppressed, it has not been eradicated. If your Highness is angry, it may stimulate the poison. As soon as these words came out, Consort Li closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, she said calmly, I understand. How is the Shaolin Temple? Is there a threat? Consort Li asked directly. Rest assured, Your Highness. Eunuch Hong said confidently. This old servant has already explored the Shaolin Temple over the past few months. Other than the back mountain and a few other forbidden areas, there is no threat anywhere else. The current Shaolin Temple's abbot, Hui Wan, is only a second-rank abbot. If he were to attack, this old servant can suppress him within 20 moves and kill him within 100 moves. Eunuch Hong said slowly. Although the Shaolin Temple is a great sect of martial arts, this generation has already completely declined. The so-called Holy Land of Buddhism is just putting gold on its face. Eunuch Hong shook his head, his tone extremely contemptuous. However, the next moment, an invisible wave of divine will rolled over and swept through the entire attic in an instant. Consort Li did not notice it, but Eunuch Hong's expression changed drastically. This is... Eunuch Hong suddenly straightened his back, as if he had felt something extremely incredible. Divine Will Manifestation? This is a peak grade 1 Great Grandmaster. Chapter 30. Inside the attic. Divine sense rolled out and shrouded the area. Eunuch Hong's scalp went numb, and his mind was in chaos. As a red-clothed eunuch in the palace, Eunuch Hong naturally knew how terrifying a peak grade 1 who could condense divine sense was. Any peak rank, one would be able to suppress everything with a raise of their hand. Why could the Wudong Mountain true martial lineage ignore the imperial power and disobey the imperial edict? Why did the Meng Yuan Empire occupy the endless grassland and covet the central plains in the south? The terror of a peak grade 1 was far beyond everyone's imagination. Eunuch Hong never dreamed that the Shaolin Temple, which was rumored to have declined a long time ago, would have a peak grade 1. Eunuch Hong, behind the curtain, Empress Li saw this scene. Although she didn't know what had happened, she was also terrified. Eunuch Hong was her trusted aide. If it wasn't for Eunuch Hong's protection, she would have died countless times. But now Eunuch Hong, who she regarded as her pillar of support, showed such a trembling and fearful expression. Empress, don't panic. Eunuch Hong calmed down and barely reacted. He bowed deeply to the empty air in all directions. This old servant Hong Yuan greets a holy monk. Eunuch Hong was very clear that although the peak grade 1 was not here, but under the cover of divine sense, all the movements in the attic were as easy as flipping the palm. After a moment, the rolling divine sense quickly retreated. Eunuch Hong heaved a sigh of relief. Eunuch Hong, what happened? Empress Li saw Eunuch Hong's expression and realized that the matter was probably over, so she quickly asked, what happened? Eunuch Hong smiled bitterly. Empress, just now, a holy monk of the Shaolin Temple sent his divine sense over. A holy monk? Divine sense? Imperial concubine Li was stunned. Although she was the Emperor of Tang's favorite concubine, she didn't know much about martial arts. For Empress Li, she only knew that martial artists were divided into 9 grades, with grade 1 being the highest and grade 9 being the lowest. As for the rest, she didn't know. Empress. Eunuch Hong sensed Her Majesty's confusion. He pondered for a moment and said helplessly, you only need to treat this a holy monk like Eunuch Zhao by His Majesty's side. Eunuch Zhao. Imperial concubine Li's heart trembled. To the people in the palace, Eunuch Zhao was second only to the Emperor of Tang. Even concubine Li only knew that Eunuch Zhao was the only purple-clothed eunuch in the Empire of Tang. His status was equal to that of a noble. Nowadays the Emperor of Tang was in the old age. The officials in the imperial court all had different thoughts. Several princes were fighting both openly and covertly. But no matter how bad the situation was, as long as the Emperor of Tang was alive, the Tang dynasty would not fall into chaos. Why was that? It was because of the purple-clothed eunuch by the Emperor of Tang's side. This purple-clothed eunuch used his own strength to suppress the officials and princes in the imperial court. Imperial concubine Li never expected that Eunuch Hong's evaluation of a holy monk would be so high. He was actually the same as Eunuch Zhao? It was unbelievable. Eunuch Hong, with such a strong person in the Shaolin Temple, our safety. Imperial concubine Li suddenly thought of something and quickly asked in a low voice, Empress, you worry too much. Eunuch Hong smiled bitterly and said, if a holy monk wanted to kill us, we would have died a long time ago. Even if the Emperor of Tang knew, he wouldn't ask. Eunuch Hong's expression was complicated. No matter how much the imperial palace doted on imperial concubine Li, they would never get into a conflict with a peak rank one for a woman. Empress. It's a good thing that the Shaolin Temple has a holy monk. At this point, Eunuch Hong paused and sighed. At least we should be safe. It's really amazing. Su Qin used his divine telekinesis, and various thoughts surged into his mind. However, the eunuch by imperial concubine Li's side can actually sense the existence of my divine telekinesis. Su Qin was slightly puzzled. When his divine telekinesis enveloped the pavilion in the bamboo forest, the eunuch called Eunuch Hong had clearly recognized it. Su Qin muttered to himself for a while and thought of the reason. The main reason was that he had just condensed his divine telekinesis. When he released it, he could not truly control it. In addition, Eunuch Hong's mental energy was naturally stronger than that of ordinary martial artists. That was why he had discovered it. After some time, when Su Qin had completely familiarized himself with his divine telekinesis, he would be able to use it freely. A cool breeze brushed past his face. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. During this time, Su Qin returned to his normal life. As for condensing his divine telekinesis, it did not affect Su Qin much. After all, even without the spirit concentrating pill, Su Qin was confident that he could condense his divine telekinesis. Just took a little longer. And what Su Qin has the most is time. An ordinary grade 1 great grandmaster can live for no more than 200 years, but Su Qin can live for 400 years. With these hundreds of years, even a pig should be able to condense his divine telekinesis, let alone Su Qin. If I want to achieve Arhat fruit, divine telekinesis, physical body, and internal strength are all indispensable. Su Qin sat cross-legged, his thoughts fluctuating. Now that I have condensed my divine telekinesis, and my physical body has been tempered by the power of extreme yin and the power of extreme yang, reaching the extreme, all that is left is internal strength. Su Qin's eyes lit up. For any grade 1 great grandmaster, the mythical bottleneck is like a natural moat. But Su Qin was able to solve two of them silently. If this matter were to spread out, it would definitely shock the world. To some extent, Su Qin at this moment is definitely one of the people closest to the mythical bottleneck among the many grade 1 great grandmasters in the world today. The next day, Su Qin went to the Bodhi court to sign in as usual. Since the last time he obtained the divine concentration pill, Su Qin's sign-in at the Bodhi court has obviously increased. Since the Bodhi court was able to get a pill like the spirit concentrating pill that could condense one's divine sense, would there be a pill that could help transform one's inner strength? With this in mind, Su Qin walked towards the Bodhi court unhurriedly. Suddenly, Su Qin stopped. Soon after, the princess of the Tang dynasty ran over. Calculating the time, imperial concubine Li and her party have been in the Shaolin Temple for more than half a year. But usually, imperial concubine Li and Eunuch Hong hardly leave the bamboo forest, so they did not affect the Shaolin Temple. In addition, imperial concubine Li is under the orders of the Emperor of Tang, so Abbot Huiwen can only turn a blind eye. As long as imperial concubine Li does not take the initiative to leave, imperial concubine Li can continue to stay. For the Shaolin Temple, they only need to provide some vegetarian meals every day. Little monk, we may be going back soon. The eyes of the little princess of the Empire of Tang were red, obviously very reluctant. Although the Shaolin Temple is far less luxurious and spectacular than the Imperial Palace, but in the Shaolin Temple she is at least safe and free. She doesn't have to worry about dying in a dry well one day, or swallowing a cup of poison. Go back? Su Qin looked surprised. Yes, this is what Eunuch Hong said. The little princess said in a low tone. Chapter 31. Little Monk. Can I ask you a question? After a while, the little princess calmed down and asked cautiously. Go ahead. Su Qin asked casually. He has no interest in the princess of the Empire of Tang. After all, the little princess is only 10 years old. And Su Qin is not a copper alchemist. He usually doesn't even bother to look at her. Do you think the Empire of Tang can be saved? The little princess looked around and lowered her voice. Can the Empire of Tang be saved? Su Qin looked at the little princess again. Su Qin did not expect that the little princess would ask this question. If the little princess asked whether the Emperor of Tang could be saved, Su Qin would understand, but the other party asked about the Empire of Tang? Let's see how the Emperor of Tang will die. Su Qin thought for a while and said, if the Emperor of Tang establishes a crown prince before he dies, and exiles the other princes to stabilize the situation, the Empire of Tang can last for hundreds of years. Su Qin's tone was flat, as if the death of the princes was as simple as eating a few bowls of rice at noon. If other people heard Su Qin say such words, even the abbot would be shocked. Even an ordinary grade 1 great-grandmaster would not dare to comment on the princes like this. But the little princess thought about it seriously and shook her head. Impossible, even I know that behind the imperial brothers, there are ministers and kings supporting them. Once an imperial brother is sentenced to death, it will inevitably cause the kings to revolt and the imperial court to be in turmoil. Then cut off the vassals and clean up the imperial court. Su Qin said slowly. When the little princess heard this, her expression changed slightly. The kings are independent and have their own troops. If they can really cut off the vassals, it will definitely be of great benefit to the rule of the Empire of Tang. Little monk, you see it very clearly. The little princess took a deep look at Su Qin. 1 month later, Imperial concubine Li's group bid farewell to Abbot Huiwen. When Abbot Huiwen received this news, he immediately escorted Imperial concubine Li out of the Shaolin Temple. For Imperial concubine Li to return at this time, could it be that something has happened in the Imperial Palace? The head of the Arhat court looked at the jade carriage that was gradually disappearing into the distance and spoke with a frown. This poor monk heard a piece of news. The Emperor of Tang's subordinate, eunuch Zhao, seemed to have used some means to prolong the Emperor of Tang's life by a few years. The head of the commandment yard whispered. The head of the Arhat Academy exclaimed in amazement. Eunuch Zhao is truly a peerless scholar. As a crippled person, he became a top-rank one. How respectable! All right, there's no need to discuss the matters outside. Abbot Huiwen glanced at the several court heads and said in a low voice. With Imperial concubine Li's group leaving, the Shaolin Temple returned to how it had been in the past. Su Qin's surroundings became quiet again. However, several months later, one night, Su Qin suddenly felt something. His figure flashed, and he appeared outside the room of the head of the chores yard. His divine sense spread out. Although separated by a door, Su Qin knew everything in the room like the back of his hand. Under the cover of his divine sense, Su Qin clearly felt that the life force of the head of the chores yard was getting weaker and weaker. Su Qin was silent. The head of the chores yard was in such a state. He should be nearing the end of his life and about to pass away. The head of the chores yard had personally led Su Qin into the chores yard. If it were not for the head of the chores yard, Su Qin might not even be able to enter the Shaolin Temple. Head of the yard, Su Qin sighed softly, pushed open the door and walked in slowly. It's Zheng Guan. The head of the chores yard opened his eyes and looked at Zheng Guan. He smiled and said, I didn't expect that in the end, it would be you beside me. Head of the yard, do you have any wishes? Su Qin glanced at the head of the chores yard and asked, Wishes? The head of the chores yard shook his head and said, I have lived for almost 100 years. When I was young, I used to indulge myself with a sword. Later, I entered the Shaolin Temple and enjoyed everything. What wishes do I have? The head of the chores yard was very open-minded. As a warrior, even if he was facing the end of the Shoyuan, he would not be speechless. The head of the chores yard looked at Su Qin and said, More than 10 years ago, when you entered the Shaolin Temple, I knew that you were different from other orphans. Later, the family Su asked me to let you return to the secular world. I knew that you were not an orphan. You entered the Shaolin Temple just to avoid disaster. Su Qin was silent. Su Qin did not want to hide the fact that he was a member of the family Su. I have already told the abbot. If you really want to return to the secular world, He will not stop you. The head of the chores yard's voice was getting weaker and weaker. Well, you can go back. I want to be alone for a while. Okay. Suchin nodded and closed the door. Outside the room, Suchin did not leave. Instead, he waited quietly for a while. It was not until the head of the chores yard's breath completely dissipated that Suchin turned and left. The next day, Abbot Huiwen and other heads of the chores yard came to the chores yard in person. Few days later, Abbot Huiwen found Suchin in person and asked him if he wanted to return to the secular world. Obviously, what the head of the chores yard said before his death was true. He did mention to Abbot Huiwen that Suchin wanted to return to the secular world. Abbot, since I have entered the Shaolin Temple, the worldly grievances have nothing to do with me. Suchin refused righteously. For Suchin, the Shaolin Temple was a treasure place that could provide him with a steady stream of magical pills and secret skills. Before he became invincible in the Shaolin Temple, Suchin would not leave. After the death of the head of the chores yard, the days became slow and long again. For Suchin, the death of the head of the chores yard made him feel a little emotional. But it was also because of this that Suchin's desire to become stronger was even more aroused. If he stayed where he was after 370 years, he would be like the head of the chores yard, facing the end of the Shoyun and waiting for death alone. This was obviously not what Suchin wanted to see. Time passed. A year had passed. During this year, Suchin had been polishing his internal force. He wanted to make his internal force go one step further so that he could complete the transformation of his body, mind, and internal force. Finally, he could break through to the Arhat realm. Internal force is nurtured by the body. How can I achieve the final transformation? Suchin kept thinking in his heart. The transformation of his body was completed by Suchin using the extreme yang force of the invincible Vajra divine art and the extreme yin force of the lunar body refining technique for a year. The transformation of his mind was condensed by Suchin taking countless divine accumulation pills to strengthen his spirit and finally condensing it with the divine concentration pill. But the transformation of his internal force, Suchin still had no clue. In the past year, he didn't know how many times he had signed in at the Bodhi court. He had even signed in dozens of divine concentration pills. But he hadn't obtained any pills related to the transformation of his internal force. Maybe I should go to the back of the mountain? Suchin turned his gaze and looked in the direction of the back of the Shaolin Temple. The back of the mountain was the forbidden area of the Shaolin Temple. It suppressed the Devil Buddha who almost destroyed the Shaolin Temple 900 years ago. In the past few years, as Suchin's strength had greatly improved, he had basically visited the other forbidden areas of the Shaolin Temple and signed in at least once. Chapter 32. Originally, Suchin did not intend to go to the back mountain. After all, in his senses, there was a faint aura of a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster in the back mountain of the Shaolin Temple. But since Suchin condensed his divine sense, his grasp of his own body has soared again, and it is not something an ordinary Grade 1 Great Grandmaster can discover. Let's go and take a look. Suchin thought for a moment and made a decision in his heart. Outside the back mountain, there are a large number of monks patrolling at all times, and the number far exceeds that of the demon subduing tower. With this level of defense, even a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster may not be able to sneak into the back mountain quietly. But for Suchin, it is just a matter of taking a few steps. His divine sense enveloped his whole body, and his aura was restrained to the extreme. In a flash, Suchin passed the patrolling monks and came to the back mountain. After entering the back mountain, his field of vision became a lot more spacious. Suchin carefully sensed and walked towards the depths. This feeling. Suchin suddenly stopped and rubbed his eyebrows. He doesn't know why, but the deeper he went into the back mountain, the more he felt that the golden Buddha, which symbolized the Buddha's palm inheritance, began to slowly emit Buddhist light. There is something related to the Buddha's palm in the forbidden area. Suchin guessed in his heart. The Buddha's palm is the strongest divine art of the Shaolin Temple. It is known as the Buddha's legacy, but it was lost 900 years ago. And 900 years ago, in addition to the loss of the Buddha's palm, there was also a major event that almost destroyed the Shaolin Temple. The Devil Buddha's tribulation. At that time, Suchin vaguely noticed that the loss of the Buddha's palm was related to the Devil Buddha. The Buddha's palm is a divine art at the level of Arhat. Only by attaining the fruit of Arhat can one be qualified to comprehend the Buddha's palm. And 900 years ago, Arhat, the only one left in the Shaolin Temple, passed away in a hurry after suppressing the Devil Buddha. As a result, the Buddha's palm was not passed down in time. Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated as he tried to recall the truth from 900 years ago. As for the Arhat from the Shaolin Temple, he only suppressed the Devil Buddha and didn't kill him. This means that Arhat was unable to kill the Devil Buddha, and could only use such means to eliminate the calamity of the Devil Buddha. Su Qin thought as he walked towards the depths of the mountain. A moment later, 5 pale golden hills appeared in Su Qin's vision. This is. Su Qin's pupils shrank and a strange look flashed across his face. If one were to look at them from afar, the 5 pale golden hills would look more like 5 fingers that had been magnified countless times. His 5 fingers held up the sky and pressed down. Buddha's palm. This is the Buddha's palm. Su Qin raised his head and looked over. Although the aura of these 5 pale golden hills was not obvious, they actually began to resonate with the golden Buddha in Su Qin's primal aperture between his eyebrows. 900 years ago, the Arhat from the Shaolin Temple was the Devil Buddha that was suppressed by the Buddha's palm. Su Qin was absolutely certain. If it were anyone else, even the current abbot of the Shaolin Temple, they probably wouldn't associate these 5 hills with the Buddha's palm. But Su Qin had the inheritance of the Buddha's palm. Although he couldn't use it, he was very clear about the aura of the Buddha's palm. Soon, Su Qin found 5 skinny figures sitting cross-legged in front of the 5 hills. These 5 figures were all dressed in monk robes. Their eyes were closed and their breathing was almost stopped. If it weren't for the faint aura leaking out, Su Qin would have thought that these 5 monks would have died long ago. These are the 5 a holy monk? Su Qin frowned. These 5 figures sitting in front of the 5 hills were indeed grade 1 a holy monk, but their aura was very strange. Neither alive nor dead. They should have used a secret technique to put themselves in a state of suspended animation to prolong the shouyuan. Only at a specific time will they wake up. Su Qin guessed in his heart. Regarding the fake death secret technique, Su Qin has also signed in dozens of them. But without exception, once this kind of secret technique is used, the body will completely stiffen and lose the possibility of going further. In the state of suspended animation, one will have no thoughts, as if they have fallen into eternal darkness. This state is a tragic torture for anyone. Grade 1 great grandmasters would rather die in battle than let themselves suffer such pain. And the reason why the 5 holy monks in front of the 5 hills are like this is to prevent the Devil Buddha from breaking free from the seal and forcibly holding down the fort with the body of a holy monk. Of course, the bodies of the 5 holy monks are far from being able to suppress the Devil Buddha. But with the seal left behind by Buddha's palm, it is enough. Sigh. Su Qin sighed softly and sighed. The Devil Buddha. Su Qin's gaze turned slightly and looked at the 5 pale golden hills. Under Su Qin's perception, although the 5 pale golden hills exuded an aura that suppressed everything, he could still feel a very deep demonic energy. Not dead for 900 years? Su Qin frowned. According to the records of the Shaolin Temple, even the existence of Arhat, or the existence of a legend, is only the shouyuan of 500 years. Since the Devil Buddha has been suppressed, it means that he has not transcended the level of Arhat. Logically speaking, after 900 years, the Devil Buddha should not even have ashes left. How could there still be remnants of his aura? Just as Su Qin was thinking. Wang! The 5 pale golden hills shook slightly. A monk in a golden robe appeared, looking down at Su Qin and said, Buddhist sect disciples can enter Buddha Mountain, obtain my inheritance and glorify Buddhism. The voice was magnificent and deafening. If it was an ordinary martial artist, even a grade 1 great grandmaster under this grand voice, they will be shocked on the spot, thinking that there is some kind of shocking inheritance in the depths of Buddha Mountain. Su Qin's eyes flashed with a strange color, and he walked straight into Buddha Mountain. After a while, Su Qin came to a Buddha cave. There were countless Buddha statues in all directions, and a strong majesty shrouded him. Since you are a Buddhist sect disciple, why don't you kneel? The monk in the golden robe appeared again. However, Su Qin didn't care. He still stood there, looking straight at the monk in the golden robe. Buddhism pays attention to equality, why should I kneel? Su Qin said casually. That's right. The monk in the golden robe seemed to think of something, nodded slightly, and looked at Su Qin approvingly. Under the age of 30, stepping into grade 1, your talent is enough to rank in the top 5 in the Shaolin Temple for thousands of years. Oh. Su Qin looked at the monk in the golden robe with interest. Who are you? My Dharma name is Pao, Tuarahan. The monk in the golden robe looked solemn and said calmly. Tuarahan is the Arhat, who suppressed the Devil Buddha 900 years ago in the Shaolin Temple. Since then, no disciple of the Shaolin Temple has been able to achieve Arhat, Buddhahood. Pao. A smile appeared on Su Qin's face as if he heard a joke. The monk in the golden robe frowned and was about to speak. However, the next moment, Su Qin's smile gradually faded, and he looked at him coldly, and said something that made the expression of the monk in the golden robe change greatly. Chapter 33. I should call you Devil Buddha, right? When Su Qin said this, the expression of the monk in the golden robe changed greatly, and he looked at Su Qin in disbelief. He didn't expect that Su Qin would see through his true identity at first glance. One must know that for 900 years, he has been suppressed by the seal day and night, and his strength has long been integrated with the seal. Moreover, his Devil Buddha Tao allows him to switch between Buddha and demon at will. Unless the real Tuarahan is resurrected, outsiders won't be able to tell who he is. How do you know? A dark demonic light faintly appeared in the depths of the pupils of the monk in the golden robe. How do I know? Su Qin didn't answer. Under the observation of the eyes of truth, Su Qin discovered that the aura of the monk in the golden robe originated from the trace of demonic energy deep underground. The eyes of truth is a divine ability that Su Qin obtained from signing in. No matter how the Devil Buddha hides, he can't hide from the eyes of truth. I've been curious after 900 years, why are you still alive? Su Qin said and looked at the monk in the golden robe again. He shook his head and said, I didn't expect that you would abandon your body and survive until today in the form of a demonic will. A grade 1 great grandmaster can cultivate divinity. A peak grade 1 can condense divine sense to explore the surroundings, interfere with foreign objects, and even kill people from a distance. And Arhat, who is completely above grade 1, has condensed his divine sense into a substance, which is equivalent to a Taoist primordial spirit. Even if the body is destroyed by condensing divine sense into a substance, an existence at the level of Arhat will not die immediately. It's just that, without the nourishment of the body, the divine sense is equivalent to a rootless source and can't last long. It's just that. The Devil Buddha used some unknown method to entrust his divine sense to the Buddha mountain and survive until now. It's just that. Even so, the Devil Buddha can't survive for long. The corporeal body would decay, and so would the divine consciousness. It was just that the divine consciousness was slightly slower than the corporeal body. Moreover, without a physical body, the Devil Buddha probably wouldn't be able to display Arhat's level of battle prowess. You lured me here in order to seize my body and escape, right? Su Qin looked at the monk in golden robes and said slowly, this is your only chance. If you want to break free from the seal, this is the only way. The golden-robed monk listened to Su Qin's words without replying. However, at some unknown time, his golden monk robe had been silently dyed with a trace of black. Moreover, this trace of black was spreading in all directions at a frightening speed. Boom! In an instant, the Buddha cavern, which was originally filled with a Zen atmosphere, had actually turned into a demonic nest where thousands of demons roared. Endless black demon chi filled the air as illusory demonic creatures formed one after another, baring their fangs at Su Qin. Not bad. What you said is right. The Devil Buddha completely tore off his disguise and looked at Su Qin like a hungry wolf. Your body has undergone a transformation, and you are not walking the path of boundless extreme yin or boundless extreme yang, but the path of yin and yang. This kind of body is hard to come by in thousands of years. Its potential is infinite. If I get it, I will definitely be able to return to my peak in less than 100 years. The Devil Buddha didn't care too much about Su Qin. Even if he doesn't have a physical body now, he is not someone a mere grade 1 great grandmaster can deal with. Even if this grade 1 great grandmaster has condensed his divine sense and transformed his body, It is still far from enough. The reason why the Devil Buddha didn't make a move outside is nothing more than because of the suppression of the seal, and he can't extend his power outside the Buddha mountain. But since Su Qin has entered the Buddha mountain, his life and death are already in his control. Now I will give you a chance. Obediently hand over your body and I can let you die a little faster. No, I will burn your divine sense with my soul fire for 100 years. The Devil Buddha looked at Su Qin with a sneer. The reason why he said this was because he was worried that Su Qin would die together with him and accidentally hurt his body. Is that so? Are you sure you can beat me? Su Qin said softly. Beat you? The Devil Buddha smiled disdainfully. In the past 900 years, although I haven't been able to completely break the seal, I have torn a small piece of the seal. Although a small piece of the seal can't let me escape, the power transmitted from it is more than enough to kill you. The Devil Buddha was telling the truth. Although he doesn't have a physical body and can't exert the real strength of Arhat, it is still far beyond grade 1. Since you won't obediently hand over your body, then I can only personally retrieve your physical body. The Devil Buddha lost his patience. With a cold expression, he raised his right hand and pressed it towards Su Qin. In an instant, the entire devil nest shook, and countless demonic energy gathered, forming a big hand that slowly pressed towards Su Qin. Under this big hand, an ordinary grade 1 great grandmaster can't even move at all. Even a peak grade 1 would feel despair and close their eyes to wait for death. The Devil Buddha looked at Su Qin coldly, as if looking at a dead man. He believed that under this blow, even if Su Qin's strength was 10 times or 100 times stronger, it would still be useless. Just as the Devil Buddha was thinking about how to take Su Qin's body for his own use as soon as possible, Su Qin suddenly took a step forward and looked directly at the Devil Buddha. Don't you want to know why I saw through your identity but still followed you in and gave you so much time to prepare? Huh. Hearing this, the Devil Buddha's complexion changed slightly. Yes. Why is that? Since Su Qin recognized that he was not Tuarahan, but the suppressed Devil Buddha, why did he take the initiative to jump into his trap? Could it be that Su Qin is a fool? How is that possible? Even the Devil Buddha does not think that a peak grade 1 is a fool. At this moment, Su Qin suddenly took another step forward. This is because I also need time. Boom! The 5 Buddha mountains suddenly roared. With Su Qin as the center, heaven and earth were enveloped by a dark golden Buddha palm. Golden Adumbra flowers bloomed in all directions. One flower, one world, one leaf, one universe, evolved into layers of pure land endless. At the core of the pure land, a golden Buddha sat upright, like a real Buddha overlooking all living beings. His eyes were indifferent, without favoritism, hatred, love, or pity. The aura of the most powerful and vast reached the 9th heaven. Crack, crack. The giant palm condensed from countless devil chi collapsed. The devil's nest, where thousands of devils roared, completely collapsed. The Buddha's light spread and illuminated everything. The Devil Buddha, who had been confident of victory, looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at the vast and endless pure land, and at the center of the pure land, where the golden Buddha pointed at the sky and touched the earth, and roared in despair to Tathagata's true will. Chapter 34. Shaolin Temple. Abbot Huiwen and the court heads gathered in the Dharma court. Abbot, why did you ask us to come over? The warrior monastery head looked at Abbot Huiwen and asked in confusion. Abbot Huiwen heard this and a smile appeared on his face. After a while, I may go into seclusion. At that time, the matters of the Shaolin Temple will be handed over to Huiju. Huiju was the Dharma court head. His strength was second only to Abbot Huiwen in the upper realm in the Shaolin Temple. Seclusion. The disciplinary court head was shocked and asked tentatively, is Abbot preparing to break through? The disciplinary court head looked at Abbot Huiwen in disbelief. Recently, I have a little understanding. Abbot Huiwen was about to speak. Suddenly, at this moment, boom! A terrifying wave swept through the Shaolin Temple. For a time, the entire Shaolin Temple trembled slightly. What's going on? What happened? The court heads' expressions changed and they quickly walked out of the Dharma court. It's the back mountain. The vibration came from the back mountain. The warrior monastery head's voice trembled as he looked in the direction of the back mountain. When these words came out, the faces of the other court heads, including Abbot Huiju, changed greatly. Since 900 years ago, Tuarahan suppressed the Devil Buddha in the back mountain. The back mountain has become the forbidden area of the Shaolin Temple. Other forbidden areas such as the Demon Subduing Tower and the Thousand Buddhas Hall, even if there is a problem, the Shaolin Temple will just have a headache. But if the back mountain is lost and the Devil Buddha escapes, it will definitely be a disaster for the Shaolin Temple. The Devil Buddha's successor that appears every 100 years has already made the Shaolin Temple anxious and almost destroyed several times, let alone the real Devil Buddha? Until then, not only the Shaolin Temple, but perhaps the entire world would become a plaything in the hands of the Devil Buddha. Hurry up and go to the back mountain. Abbot Huiyuan and the other court heads looked at each other, their expressions filled with death. If the Devil Buddha really escaped from the back mountain, they would stop the Devil Buddha even if they had to die. Very soon, Abbot Huiyuan and the others rushed to the forbidden area in the back of the mountain. However, when Abbot Huiyuan and the court heads raised their heads to look at the forbidden area in the back of the mountain, they saw a scene they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Countless golden adumbra flowers bloomed in the air, forming layers of pure land that enveloped the entire forbidden area. A gold-embodied Buddha sat in the center of the pure land, emitting an aura that was so vast and powerful that it shot straight up into the 9 heavens. Rumble! Under Abbot Huiyuan's incredulous gaze, the golden Buddha raised his palm and slowly pressed it down toward the depths of the back mountain. This is... Abbot Huiyuan opened his mouth, his face filled with disbelief. The Buddha's palm, it's the Buddha's palm. The Dharma court head's tone was fanatical. He looked at the golden Buddha and almost knelt down on the spot. The Buddha's palm was lost with the death of Tuarahan 900 years ago. Now this is... The commandment court head muttered to himself. Could it be that Tuarahan has come back to life? It shouldn't be. Abbot Huiyuan was silent for a long time and said, even if Tuarahan didn't die 900 years ago, he couldn't have lived until now. Abbot Huiyuan paused for a moment and said in disbelief, someone should be using the Buddha's palm to suppress the Devil Buddha in the back of the mountain. In the back of the mountain? The Tathagata's will. How do you have the Tathagata's will? The Devil Buddha was shocked and angry. He completely lost his composure. Even when Tuarahan suppressed him with the Buddha's palm 900 years ago, he had never been like this. The Buddha's palm belonged to the Tathagata's will. But the Tathagata's will was not the Buddha's palm. The Buddha's palm had 9 styles, and each style was completely independent. Even Tuarahan 900 years ago had only mastered one style of the Buddha's palm. In the thousands of years of history of the Shaolin Temple, the other Arhat-born were similar to Tuarahan, because no one could bear the true vast power of the Buddha's palm. And to completely master the 9 styles of the Buddha's palm, one could only do it with the Tathagata's will. Only the Tathagata's will had the effect of the outline and controlled the 9 styles of the Buddha's palm. However, the Tathagata's will was illusory and extremely mysterious. Even when the Devil Buddha flipped through all the Buddhist scriptures, he only saw a few words. The Devil Buddha even believed that the Tathagata's will did not exist in the world. But now, the Devil Buddha would never have dreamed that he would see the Tathagata's will in a young monk. The Tathagata's will? Su Qin did not think too much about it. At this moment it was as if he had transformed into the real Arhat. He had completely controlled the sealing power in the Forbidden Land. Ever since he entered the back of the mountain, Su Qin had vaguely sensed the abnormality of the golden Buddha in the ancestral aperture between his eyebrows. And this change reached its peak when Su Qin entered the Buddha mountain. With the golden Buddha in the ancestral aperture, Su Qin could already control all the sealing power in the Forbidden Land. The changes in the Forbidden Land, especially the Supreme and Mighty Buddha's palm, were not so much done by Su Qin as they were left behind by Tuarahan 900 years ago. Su Qin only activated it slightly. No, I don't want to be sealed again. The Devil Buddha saw the Buddha's palm slowly pressing down. His body suddenly exploded into countless wisps of black mist that fled in all directions. He had spent 900 years to barely break a small part of the seal and extend his power. If he was suppressed again, what awaited the Devil Buddha would be complete annihilation. Because even if the Devil Buddha gave up his physical body and struggled at death's door with his divine will, it was impossible for him to live for nearly 2,000 years. You can't escape. Su Qin's gaze was cold. Just like Tuarahan 900 years ago, he raised his right hand and pressed down again. Rumble. Heaven and earth were enveloped by a dark golden Buddha's palm. It suppressed the 5 elements and prohibited all techniques. Countless wisps of black mist let out a scream and completely evaporated. At this moment, although the endless power of the seal was mobilized, the small part of the seal that the Devil Buddha had spent 900 years to break was instantly mended. The Devil Buddha's divine will that had been suppressed underground directly let out a muffled groan and completely disappeared. It's finally over. Su Qin withdrew his right hand and felt the golden Buddha in the ancestral aperture at his brow calm down. He was slightly relieved. Although he did not know why this golden Buddha could so easily mobilize the power of the seal in the forbidden land at the back of the mountain. But now everything was over. My physical body has transformed again. Su Qin felt the changes in his body and was delighted. Although Su Qin had not used his own power just now, when he carried the power of the seal in the forbidden land at the back of the mountain, it was no different from a real arhat, expending his cultivation to change and cleanse Su Qin's body. After this battle, the benefits that Su Qin had gained were simply unimaginable. If Su Qin was just an ordinary person, he might have directly become a martial artist in the upper realm. That's right. I almost forgot about the business. Su Qin seemed to think of something and said in his heart. Chapter 35. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the divine art Devil Buddha golden body. A mechanical cold voice sounded in Su Qin's ears. Devil Buddha golden body? Su Qin nodded slightly. Obviously, this sign-in should have obtained the Devil Buddha's fundamental divine art. It's almost time to go back. Su Qin didn't immediately comprehend the Devil Buddha golden body. With such a big movement in the back mountain, Abbot Huiwen and the court heads are very likely to rush in. Soon, Su Qin walked out of Buddha Mountain. Sigh, Su Qin looked at the 5 holy monk sitting cross-legged in front of Buddha Mountain and sighed softly. The Devil Buddha seal has been strengthened. You don't need to continue guarding here. The 5 holy monk fell into a state of suspended animation with a secret technique. This secret technique can certainly prolong the life of Shou Yuan, but in this state of suspended animation, the 5 holy monk will be tortured at all times. It's better to die. Thinking of this, Su Qin flicked his finger and 5 internal forces hit the bodies of the 5 holy monk. These 5 internal forces can wake up the 5 holy monk in advance. After doing all this, Su Qin quickly left the back mountain. Outside the back mountain, Su Qin found Abbot Huiwen and the court heads guarding there. Su Qin didn't intend to remind them and directly returned to the handyman court. Devil Buddha golden body. Su Qin sat cross-legged and began to receive all the information about the Devil Buddha golden body from the system. Boom! A huge Buddha golden body appeared in Su Qin's mind. This Buddha golden body was half gold and half black. The golden side was solemn, and the black side was full of demonic intent. 2 completely opposite forces gathered in the same golden body at this moment, fusing and permeating each other. This is... Su Qin's pupils shrank slightly. In the beginning, Su Qin thought that the Devil Buddha had abandoned Buddhism to become a demon, but now it seemed that the Devil Buddha was clearly a dual cultivator. When he cultivated the Buddha demon golden body to greater mastery, he could freely switch between the demon sex internal energy and the Buddhist sex internal energy. One had to know that the greatest taboo in martial arts cultivation was heterogeneous and impure. However, not only did the Devil Buddha's golden body not care about this, it even merged the 2 extreme powers into one. Devil Buddha. Su Qin remained silent. At this moment, even Su Qin had no choice but to admit that the Devil Buddha's talent was absolutely rarely seen in 1,000 years. It was a pity. No matter how talented the Devil Buddha was, he was still no match for the Buddha's palm. After realizing how terrifying the Devil Buddha's golden body was, Su Qin did not immediately cultivate it. With Su Qin's strength, once he cultivated the Devil Buddha's golden body and converted his internal energy into devil qi, his devil might would probably be so vast that it would instantly alarm the entire Shaolin temple. Su Qin planned to find some time to find a secluded place to slowly comprehend the Devil Buddha's golden body. Since the Devil Buddha's golden body was in his mind and could not escape, Su Qin was naturally not in a hurry. Apart from the Devil Buddha's golden body, my physical body has actually transformed again with the help of the seal's power? Su Qin carefully sensed his physical body and was very satisfied. One had to know that ever since Su Qin used the invincible Vajra body divine art and the extreme Yin body refining art to temper his physical body to the extreme, at that time, Su Qin was very sure that his physical body was already the limit before attaining the fruit of Arhat. Now, with the power of my physical body, I'm afraid that I can stand shoulder to shoulder with peak grade 1, right? Su Qin's expression was filled with emotion. It should be known that only a grade 1 great grandmaster who stands at the peak of grade 1, and whose physical body, internal strength and spirit have transformed in some aspect, is qualified to be called a peak grade 1. Any peak grade 1 is enough to suppress a country. For example, the imperial teacher of the Meng Yuan Empire, and the eunuch Zhao in the palace of the Emperor of Tang. And now, if these peak grade 1 knew that there was someone who was comparable to them in terms of physical strength, their jaws would probably drop in shock. With my current accumulation, as long as my internal strength transforms, I'm afraid that I can impact the fruit of Arhat realm in a short time. Su Qin was very confident. Next, I will patiently polish my internal strength. Su Qin made a decision in his heart. Outside the back mountain forbidden area, Abbot Huiwen and the court heads have been waiting. At this moment, 5 figures slowly walked out of the back mountain forbidden area. That is, it's the 5 holy monk ancestors. Abbot Huiwen's expression changed. As the abbot of the Shaolin Temple, he naturally knows the ancestors of the Shaolin Temple. However, what Abbot Huiwen didn't expect was that these 5 ancestors, who had passed away long ago, actually came out of the back mountain forbidden area alive. After a while, Abbot Huiwen and the 5 holy monk communicated for a while and understood the whole story. In order to guard the Devil Buddha seal, there must be a holy monk outside the seal. So, the people who secretly acted before were not the ancestors? Abbot Huiwen thought for a while and suddenly asked. The 5 of us have been in a state of suspended animation with a secret method and couldn't act. One of the wrinkled holy monks said. As soon as this was said, Abbot Huiwen and the court heads looked at each other, full of doubts. Could it be that in addition to the back mountain forbidden area, there were other holy monk ancestors hidden in the Shaolin Temple? Just as Abbot Huiwen was thinking, a holy monk who spoke first said, "The Devil Buddha seal has been reinforced and we don't need to guard it anymore. We will pass away in a few months at most." As soon as this was said, Abbot Huiwen and the court heads looked gloomy. Since the back mountain forbidden area incident, the Shaolin Temple was really shaken for a while. However, as several months passed, the 5 holy monk who came out of the forbidden area passed away one after another. The Shaolin Temple was quiet again. Time once again became slow and long. During this period, Abbot Huiwen began his closed-door training, wanting to enter the grade 1 great grandmaster realm. While Abbot Huiwen was in closed-door training, all the matters of the Shaolin Temple were temporarily taken over by the Dharma court. The changes in the Shaolin Temple's high level made most of the Shaolin Temple disciples talk about it, especially the disciples of the handyman court. During the break, they began to discuss when Abbot Huiwen will come out of closed-door training, and so on. Su Qin once again returned to his previous days, signing in, sweeping the floor, and polishing his internal force. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the pill Nirvana pill. Outside the Bodhi court, Su Qin looked happy and extremely satisfied. The Nirvana pill is one of the Shaolin Temple's holy pills. It has only one function, and that is to save one's life. Any martial artist, no matter the degree of injury, can survive as long as they take the Nirvana pill. In Jianghu, this kind of life-saving pill has always been rare, especially the Nirvana pill, which has no hidden dangers. If the Nirvana pill is leaked outside, it will definitely attract the attention of grade 1 great grandmasters and even peak grade 1 martial artists. After all, even peak grade 1 martial artists can't guarantee that they won't be injured. Having the Nirvana pill is equivalent to having an extra life. Not bad, not bad. Su Qin nodded. In any case, this kind of life-saving pill, Su Qin will not complain about it. Time slowly passed. Chapter 36. Back Mountain Forbidden Area. Su Qin was sitting cross-legged. His breathing was calm, as if he was an ordinary person. But if a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster was here, they would be shocked to find that the area 10 meters around Su Qin was faintly filled with an inexplicable domain. Within the domain, even a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster's strength would be suppressed by more than half, and the closer to Su Qin, the more terrifying the suppression would be. I finally found a way to transform my internal strength. Su Qin slowly opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. Over the past year, Su Qin once again visited the Shaolin Temple, checking and filling in the gaps, to see if there was anything missing that he didn't sign in. In the end, Su Qin was pleasantly surprised to find that in the Back Mountain Forbidden Area, he could sign in again every once in a while. In the subsequent sign-ins, in addition to the Devil Buddha Golden Body, Su Qin also obtained Demonic Will Split Parasitism, Burning Heaven Demon Fire, Devil Buddha 9 Strikes, and other demonic arts unique to the Devil Buddha from the Back Mountain Forbidden Area. Among them, the Demonic Will Split Parasitism was a technique where the Devil Buddha abandoned his body and lived in the world in the form of demonic will. It has to be said that although this technique can only be used by those at the level of Arhat, Su Qin had a deep understanding of its terrifying power. You must know that even if Arhat achieved the Buddhahood of Arhat and was invincible in the world, it was only 500 years of Shoyuan. But with the Demonic Will Split Parasitism, the Devil Buddha endured for thousands of years, which was enough to kill 2 generations of Arhat. Just that. Su Qin was not interested in the Demonic Will Split Parasitism. If it wasn't for the fact that there was no other way out, who would be willing to turn themselves into something that was neither human nor ghost like the Devil Buddha? Compared with the Devil Buddha, Su Qin's potential was unlimited. Why would he need to use the Demonic Will Split Parasitism to prolong his life? Of course, Su Qin did not intend to abandon his physical body, but some of the ideas in the Demonic Thought Division Parasitism method were worth learning. Apart from the Demonic Will Split Parasitism technique, the heaven-burning demonic fire was Su Qin's greatest gain. This demonic technique used one's divine will as a guide to ignite the demonic fire. The demonic fire was formless and formless, but it could burn away the impurities in the inner energy, achieving the effect of purifying the inner energy. With the speed at which the burning sky demon flame purifies inner strength, it will take at most 5 years for the transformation of inner strength to be completed. Su Qin's eyes lit up. If he didn't have the burning sky demon fire, Su Qin could only rely on time to slowly polish it. In this way, if he wanted to transform his inner strength, he would need at least 10 years of hard work. However, the burning heaven devil flame had shortened this process by dozens of times. If the Grade 1 Great Grandmasters outside knew about this, they would probably go crazy with jealousy. Of course, Su Qin does not care about the thoughts of a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster. With Su Qin's current strength, no matter how many Grade 1 Great Grandmasters came, it would be a matter of a few slaps. Unfortunately, after the last time, the power of the seal in the back mountain was used to suppress the Devil Buddha. Otherwise, I would really want to strengthen my body again. Su Qin glanced around with a regretful expression. Although Su Qin still has absolute control over the seal in the back mountain by relying on the golden Buddha in his eyebrows. However, Su Qin also knows the seriousness of the matter. If he used the seal again and released the Devil Buddha, wouldn't the loss outweigh the gain? Besides, right now, Su Qin's body has almost been strengthened to the limit. Even if he used the seal again, it would not improve much. After 5 years, when the transformation of inner strength is completed, I can try to break through to the Arhat realm. Su Qin slowly got up and walked out of the back mountain. Quietly avoiding the patrolling monks, Su Qin returned to the handyman court in the blink of an eye. With my current strength compared to Daoist Zhang of Wudong true martial lineage, or the imperial teacher of the Mengyuan Empire, who is stronger and who is weaker? Su Qin thought slowly in his heart. Whether it is Daoist Zhang or the imperial teacher, they are both peak Grade 1 Great Grandmasters. Ordinary Grade 1 Great Grandmasters would not dare to be presumptuous in front of these two. Su Qin was a little curious at this moment. What peak Grade 1 Great Grandmaster Zhang and the imperial teacher are? One must know that as long as one's soul, internal strength, and body have transformed, they can be called peak Grade 1. The second transformation, even if all three have transformed, they are still peak Grade 1. Although Su Qin has only transformed his divine soul and body, with the terror of his body, even if he faces a peak grade 1 who has transformed all three, he will not be afraid. Of course, although Su Qin's strength at this moment is already standing at the peak of the world, he has no complacency at all. In Su Qin's view, if he wants to be truly invincible in the world, peak grade 1 is far from enough. At the very least, he must be Arhat realm to barely meet the requirements. In fact, Su Qin feels that Arhat realm is not foolproof. 900 years ago, how did Tuarahan of the Shaolin Temple pass away? Wasn't it because he went all out against the Devil Buddha? In the end, although he suppressed the Devil Buddha with the Buddha's palm, he also passed away because of his injuries. What if another Devil Buddha appears in Su Qin's era? The next day, Su Qin came to the Bodhi court to sweep the floor. "System, sign in for me," Su Qin said in his heart. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the medicinal pill face retaining pill. A cold mechanical voice sounded in Su Qin's ears. Face retaining pill? Su Qin was slightly taken aback. Su Qin didn't expect that the sign-in this time would actually give him the face-retaining pill. In fact, for Su Qin, the face-retaining pill has no effect. It's not as good as a small recovery pill. At least he can chew it a few times like candy. Of course, in the eyes of some women, the face-retaining pill can help them retain their youth forever. It's no different from a real immortal pill. Forget it. I'll keep it first. Maybe it will be useful in the future. Su Qin threw the face-retaining pill into the system space. After signing in, Su Qin looked up at the Bodhi court. Huiwen has been in seclusion for a year. Why hasn't it ended yet? Could it be that an accident happened? Su Qin was puzzled. He remembered that when he entered the first grade from the second grade, he didn't encounter any difficulties at all. It was completely natural and easy. And Abbot Huiwen deliberately broke through in the Bodhi court this time because he wanted to rely on the large number of medicinal pills in the Bodhi court to increase the possibility of a successful breakthrough. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any problems. Let's take a look. Su Qin opened the eyes of truth and looked towards the depths of the Bodhi court. The eyes of truth can see through all auras. At this moment in Su Qin's vision, dozens of auras appeared in the depths of the Bodhi court. Su Qin quickly looked at the aura belonging to Abbot Huiwen. After entering the temple for more than 10 years, although Su Qin hasn't had much contact with Abbot Huiwen, it's easy to just lock onto his aura. Why is he so weak? Could it be that he has gone mad? Chapter 37. If there is no accident, Huiwen probably won't survive tonight. Su Qin carefully observed the aura belonging to Abbot Huiwen in the depths of the Bodhi court and judged in his heart. It's a pity. Su Qin sighed softly. After entering the temple for more than 10 years, although Su Qin has not received much preferential treatment, Abbot Huiwen has never deliberately targeted him. Even after the death of the previous court head, Abbot Huiwen specifically looked for Su Qin and asked if Su Qin had any intention of returning to the secular world. It can be said that as the abbot of the Shaolin Temple, although he did not lead the Shaolin Temple to prosperity, at least he kept the foundation and let Su Qin sign in quietly for more than 10 years. If Huiwen dies, the Shaolin Temple will inevitably be in chaos, and it will even attract the attention of outside forces. At that time, it will be impossible for me to sweep the floor and sign in as leisurely as before. Su Qin thought in his heart. Forget it. More than 10 years of fasting can't be ignored. Su Qin's mind moved, and a few meters around him were suddenly enveloped in an inexplicable domain. Inside the domain, the line of sight was blurred, and even the light began to distort faintly, and only a vague figure could be vaguely recognized standing there. Deep in the Bodhi court, the court heads gathered, and their faces were full of grief. Is the abbot really unable to be saved? The Dharma court head looked at the Bodhi court head and asked in a deep voice. Over the past year, Abbot Huiwen has been in seclusion trying to break through, and all the matters of the Shaolin Temple are handled by the Dharma court head. However, the Dharma court head did not expect that Abbot Huiwen's breakthrough this time would have such an ending. The Bodhi court head shook his head slightly, his expression solemn. Qi deviation, his meridians are in chaos. Even if a grade 1 great grandmaster consumes his cultivation, he can only save his life. It's basically impossible to completely recover. As soon as he said this, the other academy heads were silent. As a matter of fact, they were already prepared for what the patriarch of the Bodhi Hall was going to say. The biggest taboo for martial arts cultivators was to go berserk. This was because when one went berserk, one's inner strength would collapse, and one's meridians would become chaotic. It was basically equivalent to being incurable. Abbot. The warrior monastery's head looked at Abbot Huiwen, who was sitting cross-legged with a face as pale as a sheet. The other court heads also looked sorrowful, especially the head of the Dharma court. He was now taking over all the affairs of the Shaolin Temple in place of Abbot Huiwen. He immediately realized that if Abbot Huiwen passed away, what kind of influence would it have on the Shaolin Temple? Although the Shaolin Temple had no lack of upper realm martial artists, there was only one second-grade martial artist, Abbot Huiwen. If they lost Abbot Huiwen, the Shaolin Temple was equivalent to not having a second-grade martial artist. Originally, as a great sect, the Shaolin Temple not having a grade 1 great grandmaster was enough to arouse suspicion from the outside world. The reason why nothing has happened so far is entirely because the Shaolin Temple has a deep heritage, and no one dares to provoke them. But if the Shaolin Temple can't even bring out a second-grade martial artist, even if their heritage is unfathomable, it is impossible to convince the public. At that time, the Shaolin Temple would be removed from the list of great sects in the world, and would be directly besieged by many forces. No matter which one it is not a price that the Shaolin Temple can afford to pay. At this moment, Abbot Huiwen slowly opened his eyes and said with difficulty, "I was too anxious this time." Abbot Huiwen's face was pale, without a trace of blood. At this moment the internal strength in his body was completely chaotic, and he couldn't even move. Now that he could barely speak, it was already a sign of his strong willpower. "Abbot, you will be fine." The warrior monastery's head immediately approached, his eyes red. Abbot Huiwen shook his head and looked at the Dharma court's head. "After I pass away, the Shaolin Temple will be handed over to you." The Dharma court's head nodded, with a heavy expression. No matter what, even if they have to pay a high price, the inheritance of the Shaolin Temple cannot be destroyed. Suddenly, at this moment, there was a sudden noise outside the Bodhi court. "Who are you? How dare you break into the Bodhi court?" A martial monk's violent roar sounded. Outside the Bodhi court, a large number of patrolling martial monks stared at a vague figure as if they were facing a great enemy. Because Abbot Huiwen was in seclusion, the Bodhi court had long been blocked by many martial monks. "Get out of the way." Su Qin was too lazy to explain. At this moment, his figure and appearance were covered by a secret technique of internal strength, and no one could recognize him. Buzz! Su Qin's pace was neither fast nor slow, but every time he took a step, a terrible pressure covered them. Under this pressure, all the martial monks were like ants facing a high god. Their internal strength stagnated in an instant, and they fell to the ground and fainted. And this was because Su Qin did not kill them. Otherwise, with his strength, it would have been impossible for any of the monks to survive in that instant. Soon, Su Qin came to the depths of the Bodhi court. The heads had just heard the violent roar of the martial monks outside when they saw a vague figure coming in. Suddenly, their expressions changed greatly. At this moment, even if the heads could not react, they realized that the vague figure who suddenly broke in was an extremely terrible existence. The many martial monks guarding outside the Bodhi court were the elites of the Shaolin Temple. Even if Abbot Huiwen, a level 2 martial artist, wanted to break in, it would take a while. But the vague figure in front of them? Not even a moment and he came in? How terrible was his strength? "Get out of here!" The warrior monastery head roared. His aura soared rapidly, and he slammed a punch at Su Qin. This punch gathered all the strength of the warrior monastery head. And even the final breakthrough was enough to make a level 2 martial artist pale in comparison. However, under everyone's incredible eyes, the punch of the warrior monastery head was only 10 meters away from the vague figure, but it was as if he had fallen into a quagmire and was directly imprisoned in place. Troublesome. Su Qin frowned and released a little bit of his aura. In an instant, a terrifying domain covered the sky and instantly enveloped the entire Bodhi court. Under this domain, all the heads were like insects in amber, unable to move. Not only that, the internal strength in their body seemed to have been frightened, and instantly shrank in their dantian, not daring to come out. This scene completely stunned all the court heads. They were a group of martial artists in the upper realm. Even if they were placed in the world, they could be regarded as strong. But in front of Su Qin, they were as fragile as a baby. The other party didn't even raise his hand, and they had all lost the ability to resist. What kind of strength could do this to such a degree? The scalps of the Dharma court head and the others were numb. Looking at the vague figure, their hearts trembled in panic. And at this moment, Chapter 38. Bodhi Court. Su Qin slowly walked in front of Abbot Huiwen. At this moment, Abbot Huiwen's eyes were wide open as he looked at Su Qin in shock. From the time Su Qin broke into the Dharma court until now, it has only been a few moments, but in this time, hundreds of Middle Realm monks of the Shaolin Temple, as well as the court heads, have all lost their ability to move. This kind of strength, even an ordinary Grade 1 Great Grandmaster would not be able to do it, right? Blood flow in reverse. Meridians disorder. Su Qin opened the eyes of truth and looked at Abbot Huiwen at close range. Under the observation of the eyes of truth, everything in Abbot Huiwen's body fell into Su Qin's eyes. If it was any other Grade 1 Great Grandmaster, even if it was a peak Grade 1, they would be helpless in the face of Abbot Huiwen's situation. At most, they would have to consume their cultivation base to save Abbot Huiwen's life. As for more, there is nothing they can do. After all, even a peak Grade 1 can't know Abbot Huiwen's body like the back of their hand. But Su Qin is different. Su Qin, who has the eyes of truth, is like a divine doctor who can prescribe the right medicine. He only needs to look at Abbot Huiwen's body a few times to determine the condition of his body and save him. Are you a holy monk? Abbot Huiwen looked at the blurry figure in front of him and asked tentatively. At this moment, Abbot Huiwen was no longer afraid, because if Su Qin really wanted to kill him, he would have died long ago. With Su Qin's strength, he can easily slaughter the entire Shaolin Temple, let alone a cripple like him. But now Su Qin didn't kill him. He just stood there. Obviously, he wasn't an enemy of the Shaolin Temple. In the Shaolin Temple, there was only one person who could have such terrifying strength as Su Qin. That person was a holy monk, who had been hiding in the dark and had saved the Shaolin Temple several times. Don't talk. Try to regain control of your inner strength. Su Qin ignored him. He gently raised his right hand and placed it on Huiwen's chest. Regaining control of my inner strength? Abbot Huiwen stared blankly for a moment before smiling bitterly. He had already completely gone berserk, and the inner energy in his body had long gone berserk. How could he possibly control it? Seeing you're a holy monk, there's no need for you to do anything. Even if you exhaust your cultivation to save my life, I'll still become a cripple. Why do you need to weaken your strength for a cripple like me? Abbot Huiwen's eyes were gloomy. Abbot Huiwen was very clear about his injuries. He had gone berserk and there was no cure. Even if he were to exhaust his cultivation to save him, he would still be a cripple. However, the next moment, as Su Qin's right hand gently touched Abbot Huiwen's body, a terrifying inner strength poured in. Under this inner strength, the inner strength in Abbot Huiwen's body, which had gone berserk, became extremely obedient and meekly flowed between his tendons and veins. This is... Abbot Huiwen's pupils suddenly shrank, and he looked at Su Qin in disbelief. In a flash, Abbot Huiwen realized what he should do at this moment. He immediately closed his eyes and began to regain control of his inner strength. When the court heads saw this scene, their hearts tightened, and they suddenly thought of something. Although they were imprisoned in place, they still had the ability to think. At this moment, when they saw the actions of the vague figure who had broken into the Dharma court, they immediately thought that the other party might have come to save Abbot Huiwen. This person, is he here to save the abbot? Is it the temple's a holy monk ancestor? The court head's thoughts fluctuated. Next, after suppressing Abbot Huiwen's inner strength, Su Qin began to clean up his disordered tendons and veins. With the help of the eyes of truth, Su Qin did not spend much effort to pull Abbot Huiwen back from cultivation deviation. After a while, Su Qin slowly retracted his right hand. I'm all right? Almost at the same time, Abbot Huiwen opened his eyes and looked at his hands in disbelief. The court heads around were stunned as they looked at Abbot Huiwen, whose face quickly recovered its ruddy complexion. They never dreamed that Abbot Huiwen had completely recovered. It must be known that with the depth of Abbot Huiwen's cultivation deviation, even if a grade 1 great grandmaster was willing to take the risk of losing a lot of their strength, they could only save Abbot Huiwen's life. As for a complete recovery, it was simply impossible. But now, looking at Abbot Huiwen's ruddy complexion and stable aura, the court heads felt as if they were dreaming. The road of martial arts is gradual, don't be impatient. Su Qin looked at Abbot Huiwen and casually reminded him. If Abbot Huiwen had waited a few more years and patiently polished his body, he would not have entered cultivation deviation. Huiwen has been taught. When Abbot Huiwen heard this, his expression became solemn, and he respectfully said to Su Qin. In Abbot Huiwen's view, Su Qin must be the patriarch of the Shaolin Temple, so he should salute him like this. Su Qin looked at the respectful Abbot Huiwen and didn't know what to say. If Abbot Huiwen knew that the person standing in front of him at this moment was just an inconspicuous sweeping monk of the handyman court, who knows what kind of expression he would have. It's time to go. Su Qin glanced at the other court heads who were still imprisoned and motionless. Now that they have been rescued, Su Qin also has to leave. The next moment, the inexplicable domain that permeated the entire Bodhi court slowly dissipated. The court heads took a deep breath, as if they were rescued from drowning, and suddenly straightened up. Plop! The warrior monastery's court head directly fell to the ground, his face ashen. He had just punched at Su Qin, but the result was that he was imprisoned. Now that the imprisonment was gone, the force had dissipated, and he couldn't control it, so he could only bite the bullet and fall to the ground. The other court heads quickly turned to look at Abbot Huiwen. A holy monk has left. Abbot Huiwen sat there in a daze, looking disappointed. Abbot, are you okay? The Dharma court head immediately walked to Abbot Huiwen and asked quickly. I'm fine. Abbot Huiwen shook his head and said, your breath is stable, and your blood is flowing freely. Have you really completely recovered? The Bodhi court head checked Abbot Huiwen's pulse and murmured in disbelief. Although he had guessed something from Abbot Huiwen's complexion, when he really confirmed that Abbot Huiwen was fine, there was still a huge wave in his heart. One had to know that this was a qi deviation that was said to be incurable. At this moment, Su Qin had already arrived outside the Bodhi court. Hundreds of monks were lying on the ground in disarray. Just now, Su Qin wanted to enter the Bodhi court, but these monks wanted to stop him, and then this happened. Su Qin ignored them. These monks were only temporarily unconscious, and they would wake up in a few hours. Soon, Su Qin returned to the chores court. Along the way, Su Qin had been using his inner force to hide his appearance and figure, and only when he was sure that no one was nearby did he slowly release the concealment. I didn't expect the Eye of Truth to have such a function. Su Qin was slightly emotional. Chapter 39. The most unsolvable thing about cultivation deviation is that everything happens inside the body. Internal strength is rioting. Meridians are disordered. Blood is boiling. Even if an outsider wants to help in the face of this situation, they have no way to do so. It is precisely because of this that even if it is a grade 1 great grandmaster, in the face of a person who has cultivation deviation, they have no other choice but to bite the bullet and consume their cultivation base to keep the other party alive. But all of this is nothing to Su Qin, who has the eyes of truth. The eyes of truth can see through all qi. Everything in Abbot Huiwen's body is naturally within his observation. To save Abbot Huiwen, Su Qin only needs to follow the prompts of the eyes of truth. There is no difficulty at all. Bodhi court. The court heads and Abbot Huiwen are still here. Although Abbot Huiwen has completely recovered, he is going to rest here for a while. The other court heads have 10,000 questions in their hearts, so they naturally did not leave. Abbot, did you see clearly just now which a holy monk was in the Shaolin Temple? The disciplinary court head couldn't help but ask curiously. When Su Qin entered the Bodhi court, his appearance and figure were covered, and they only saw a vague figure. But Abbot Huiwen, as the only person who came in contact with a holy monk, is very likely to have seen the other party's true appearance. No. Abbot Huiwen shook his head. Abbot Huiwen is telling the truth and did not hide anything. He really did not see Su Qin's true appearance. Just now, Abbot Huiwen was shocked that he had recovered. Moreover, even if Abbot Huiwen wanted to see it, he couldn't. When the other court heads heard this, they were suddenly silent. Although they don't know why a holy monk covered his face, they can only guess that there are some difficulties. Right. More than a year ago, there was a change in the forbidden area at the back of the mountain. The seal was restabilized. Could it be related to a holy monk? The head of the Dharma court asked. As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. Although they had asked the 5 holy monk who had walked out of the forbidden area at the back of the mountain, the 5 holy monks confessed that they had been in a state of suspended animation and had never touched the seal. Besides, the seal was left behind by Tuarahan. A holy monk wouldn't be able to touch it even if they wanted to. The court heads were puzzled by this matter, but they could only let it go. However, at this moment, the Dharma court's chief dean brought it up again, causing the others to fall into deep thought. All right. There's no need to mention this again, Abbot Huiwen said after pondering for a while. Regardless of whether the incident at the back of the mountain was related to a holy monk or not, since a holy monk did not take the initiative to admit this matter, it is not something they can think about. It involves the seal left behind by Tuarahan 900 years ago. Its level is far beyond the limit of everyone's imagination. Time passed slowly. A year passed in a blink of an eye. On this day, heavy snow was falling, and the entire Shaolin temple was shrouded in a layer of silver sand. In front of the scripture pavilion, Su Qin was casually sweeping the snow. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the fist technique Radiant Fist. Radiant Fist? Su Qin's heart moved. Radiant Fist is the secret technique of the Shaolin Temple. It is known as the number 1 fist technique. There was a period when the Shaolin Temple was besieged by many great sects. At that time, the abbot of the Shaolin Temple used this fist technique to fight against several grade 1 great grandmasters alone, and eventually blocked many great sects outside the Shaolin Temple. The next moment, a lot of information about Radiant Fist poured into Su Qin's mind. After a while, Su Qin opened his eyes, and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. The person who created this fist technique is a great grandmaster who has undergone at least one transformation, Su Qin muttered to himself. The subtlety of Radiant Fist, even in Su Qin's view, was quite interesting. One must know that Su Qin has signed in at the Shaolin Temple. Who knows how many divine arts and secret techniques? For Su Qin to feel this way, it can be seen how terrifying this fist technique is. Especially the last punch of Radiant Fist. It involves at least dozens of secret techniques. Can be said that it contains hundreds of secret techniques. Not bad, not bad. Another trump card. Su Qin was quite satisfied. Over the past year, Su Qin has been using Burning Heaven's demon fire to purify his internal strength and sign in everywhere in the Shaolin Temple. With the continuous purification of his internal strength, Su Qin increasingly felt the difficulty of martial Dao cultivation. In addition to this, a lot of things have happened in the Shaolin Temple in the past year. For example, the Dharma court's head has broken through the bottleneck and became the second grade 2 martial artist in the Shaolin Temple after Abbot Huiwen. There is also Abbot Huiwen, after several months of cultivation, is preparing to break through again. According to Su Qin's speculation, this time Abbot Huiwen should not go berserk. If there is no accident, in a few years the Shaolin Temple will have another grade 1 great grandmaster. Finally, this year, it has been the 15th year since Su Qin came to the Shaolin Temple. It's been 15 years. Su Qin looked up at the sky and sighed softly. Snow fell from the sky as if it would never end. Su Qin let the snow fall on him and did not stop it. 15 years ago, Su Qin was forced to enter the Shaolin Temple in order to avoid the enemy of the family Su. However, even Su Qin didn't expect that this time it would be 15 years. 15 years ago, Su Qin was just a weak family Su's third young master who was not even grade 9. 15 years later, Su Qin was already able to shake the world. Even the imperial teacher of the Meng Yuan dynasty, Daoist Zhang of Wudong Mountain's true martial lineage, is not necessarily his opponent. I'm old, I like to think too much. Su Qin smiled and was ready to return to the handyman court. Just as Su Qin returned to the handyman court, a disciple found him. Zhengguan, there is a letter for you. The disciple put a letter in front of Su Qin. Although the Shaolin Temple pays attention to purity of heart and few desires, it does not prevent the disciples from contacting the outside world. After all, most of the disciples of the Shaolin Temple are not orphans. They have relatives outside. Even if they enter the Buddhist sect, it is impossible to really cut off all ties. Is it from the family Su? Su Qin glanced at the envelope. For 15 years, the family Su would write to Su Qin every once in a while, and this time was probably the same. Thinking of this, Su Qin opened the envelope and glanced at it. A moment later, Su Qin put down the letter, and a complicated look flashed across his face. It turns out that my little sister is going to get married. In Su Qin's mind, a slug that always followed behind him suddenly appeared. Before entering the Shaolin Temple, Su Qin was the third young master of the family Su. Above Su Qin there were 2 brothers. In addition, Su Qin also had a little sister. The 4 of them had the same father and mother, and blood was thicker than water. His little sister was 7 years younger than Su Qin. She always had a runny nose, and she always followed Su Qin. It could be said that in the family Su, the one who had the best relationship with Su Qin was his little sister. In this letter, it was the news that his little sister was going to get married. In the end, I still can't see through it. Su Qin was silent for a while, and in the early morning he walked out of the Shaolin Temple. Chapter 40. Outside the Shaolin Temple. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Su Qin chose to leave the Shaolin Temple in the wee hours of the morning to avoid missing the daily sign-in opportunity. As long as Su Qin could rush back before tomorrow night, there would be no loss. It's been 15 years. I wonder how my little sister is doing now? In front of Su Qin's eyes, he seemed to see the slug that always followed him. His little sister's name was Su Yueyun, and she was 7 years younger than Su Qin. When Su Qin first entered the Shaolin Temple, Su Yueyun was only 3 years old. Now that 15 years had passed, Su Yueyun was already 18 years old. Women in this world had to get married at the age of 16. Su Yueyun was already considered old for her to wait until she was 18. However, before I go back, there is something I need to deal with. Su Qin suddenly stopped and looked up in a certain direction. 15 years ago, a great enemy of the family Su came. At that time, in order to preserve the bloodline of the family Su, all the family Su disciples were scattered everywhere. It was precisely because of this that Su Qin was sent to the Shaolin Temple. Only by entering the Shaolin Temple and relying on the protection of the Shaolin Temple could Su Qin be safe. Later on, although the Su family used some means to force that great enemy to retreat and recover, that great enemy was still alive. Over the years, Su Qin had been busy signing in to improve his strength. In addition, everything was fine with the family Su, so he didn't pay attention to the enemy. Now, he could use this opportunity to completely deal with the enemy. According to the letters sent by the family Su over the years, the enemy's name is Yan Hua. He is a disciple of the demon sect and recently became the guardian of this generation of the demon sect. Su Qin thought quickly. Because of this matter, the head of the family Su was quite worried in the letter, worried that the enemy would use the power of the demon sect to sweep over again. Demon sect. Su Qin's eyes flashed coldly. Yongzhou. The Empire of Tang occupied a total of 18 states. Among them, Yong State was the territory of the demon sect, and the headquarters of the demon sect was located there. Within the borders of the Empire of Tang, there was a battle between the righteous path and the devil path. However, ever since the previous leader of the devil path went into closed-door training, the devil path had always been at a disadvantage in the battle against the righteous path. A few decades ago, the demon sect still occupied 3 states. But now, as the righteous path continued to suppress them, the demon sect was only left with Yongzhou. The Empire of Tang, on the other hand, turned a blind eye to the fight between the righteous path and the devil path. They had no intention of mediating. Regardless of whether it was the righteous path or the evil sect, in the eyes of the Empire of Tang, they were all traitors who did not listen to their orders. They wanted as many of them dead as possible, so how could they possibly mediate? The Empire of Tang had even fanned the flames of war between the righteous and the devil path several times. At this very moment, at the foot of Southern Sorcerer Mountain in Yongzhou, a little boy in thick cotton clothes looked up at the falling snow with a face full of excitement. Grandpa, the snow is really heavy. The little boy rubbed a snowball and looked at an old man next to him. Yes. It's been decades since such a heavy snowfall has happened. The old man looked emotional as if he had fallen into some memories. At this moment, a gentle voice sounded. Is this the Southern Witch Mountain? A young monk in a gray robe was looking at the pair of grandfather and grandson with a smile. This young monk was naturally Su Qin. The Shaolin Temple was thousands of miles away from Yongzhou. It would take at least a few months or even a year for an ordinary person to cross such a long distance. Even a martial artist would take nearly a month. But for Su Qin, it only took a few hours to go from the Shaolin Temple to Yongzhou. And this was because Su Qin occasionally stopped on the way to see if there was any place nearby where he could sign in, which wasted some time. Otherwise, Su Qin would have arrived at Yongzhou even faster. Yes, it's right ahead. The little boy looked up at Su Qin and felt a little strange, but he still nodded and said, there is a lot of miasma in the Southern Witch Mountain. And, the little boy looked around carefully and lowered his voice. Grandpa told me that there are immortals in the Southern Witch Mountain. If you don't have anything to do, don't go near. Immortals? Su Qin was slightly taken aback. But he quickly reacted. The immortals mentioned by the little boy were probably the demon sect martial artists. The Southern Witch Mountain was located deep in the demon sect headquarters, and there were often demon sect martial artists coming in and out. To an ordinary person like the little boy, those martial artists who came and went were no different from immortals. There will be heavy snow today, go back early. Su Qin glanced at the grandfather and grandson and walked toward the Southern Witch Mountain unhurriedly. Heavy snow. You are not an immortal, how do you know there will be heavy snow today? The little boy whispered. Although it was still snowing, it was obviously getting lighter. It should stop during the day. How could it be heavy snow? Grandpa, are you okay? Why aren't you talking? Just then, the little boy suddenly thought of something and turned to look at the old man next to him. Don't talk. The old man's face was as white as paper and his hands were shaking uncontrollably. Grandpa, are you okay? The little boy realized something was wrong and quickly ran to the old man's side. You. The old man smiled bitterly. The old man smiled bitterly and glared fiercely at the little boy. Do you know that the two of us have already walked through the gates of hell? Huh. Gates of hell. The little boy was puzzled. Grandpa, are you referring to that person just now? The old man's expression changed again when he heard this. He looked in the direction Su Qin left and fear flashed across his face. Don't you see anything strange? Strange. The little boy blinked his eyes. The old man sighed and stepped on the snow. Then he looked at the little boy. What is this? Footprints. The little boy said matter-of-factly. Why are there footprints? The old man asked. The little boy rolled his eyes. Grandpa, do you think I'm stupid? It's snowing now and the ground is covered in snow. If you step on it, of course there will be footprints. The old man took a deep breath and said in a trembling voice, but look at that person's path. Do you see any footprints? The little boy frowned and turned to look. Huh. The little boy's expression changed. Because everywhere he looked, there was a vast expanse of white snow, stretching as far as the eye could see. No footprints. The little boy's face suddenly turned pale as if he had seen a ghost. One had to know that the snow this year was very heavy. A few days ago, the snow on the ground was several feet thick. If an ordinary person walked on it, they would definitely leave a thick footprint. But now, the little boy did not find any footprints. There's one more thing. The old man calmed down and continued. Did you see any snow on that person? As soon as he said this, the little boy's body trembled. Indeed, when he first saw Su Qin, he felt that something was strange. But at that time the little boy did not think much of it. But now that the old man reminded him, the little boy finally realized that whether it was him or the old man, there was a lot of snow on their bodies. This was something that could not be helped. It was snowing and they were not in the house. How could they not get some snow on them? But the young monk was different. His body, clean and tidy. Chapter 41. Grandpa, did we just see a ghost? The little boy's teeth were chattering. Sometimes the less you know, the happier you are. Just like the little boy, he didn't know anything, so he had no fear. But now, after the old man's reminder, The little boy couldn't maintain his initial state of mind. I don't know if it's a ghost or not, but we should have met a real expert. The old man's face calmed down a little. He looked at the little boy and said, "By the way, what else did that person say?" "What else did he say?" The little boy was at a loss. He said subconsciously, "He also said that there will be heavy snow today, and asked us to go back early." Heavy snow? The old man looked up at the sky and said without hesitation, "Let's go back now, don't stay outside." Under the southern Witch Mountain. Su Qin stopped and looked at the first mountain in Yongzhou. Of course, Su Qin didn't know that just because he casually asked for directions, he scared the ordinary grandfather and grandson. Is this the Southern Witch Mountain? Su Qin opened the Eye of Truth and looked slowly. Under the observation of the Eye of Truth, the entire Southern Witch Mountain was filled with Qi-ji. The Eye of Truth claimed to be able to see through all Qi-ji. What was Qi-ji? Qi-ji was a substance produced by the intertwining of the body and soul. Ordinary people had Qi-ji, martial artists had Qi-ji, and even Arhat had Qi-ji. Qi-ji was a manifestation of a person. For example, the Qi-ji of a demon martial artist was dark and evil. At this moment, Su Qin saw that in the depths of the Southern Witch Mountain, there was a large number of demon martial artists Qi-ji. Should be here. Su Qin nodded slightly. If the family Su's enemy Yan Hu had really become a demon sect protector, he would definitely be here. The strongest of these Qi-ji is just a grade 1. Su Qin suddenly had a rough idea. Under the observation of the Eye of Truth, even Arhat couldn't hide from Su Qin. Moreover, if the demon sect really had someone at the level of Arhat, why would they be forced into Yongzhou by the righteous path? In order to be absolutely safe, Su Qin continued to observe for an hour until he was completely sure that there were no warriors who could threaten him in the entire Southern Witch Mountain. Only then did he slowly enter the mountain. A moment later, Su Qin had just walked halfway up the mountain when he was stopped by someone. This is a restricted area of the demon sect. Trespassers will die. Two gloomy men blocked Su Qin and looked at Su Qin maliciously. The aura emanating from their bodies indicated that they were all ranked martial artists. "I'm looking for Yan Hua," Su Qin said calmly. "Protector Yan?" The two men looked at each other, and their expressions became much more restrained. Even though they didn't know the relationship between the little monk and Protector Yan. However, Guardian Yan was one of the guardians of the demon sect. He was not someone that they could afford to offend. Furthermore, Su Qin had called Yan Hua by his full name. "Just you wait." One of the men hesitated for a moment, then turned and left. Deep in the Southern Witch Mountain. In a hall. More than a dozen figures were sitting cross-legged. These figures had concealed their aura. They were all martial artists in the upper realm. "Yan Hua, you have stepped into the upper realm and become a guardian of the demon sect. The family Su's matter will naturally be solved by the demon sect." The man in the first position looked at the figure sitting below and said slowly, "Vice Sect Master, the family Su killed my brother. The enmity between the family Su and I will not rest until one of us is dead." Yan Hua was an old man with a gloomy face. At this moment, his face was filled with hatred. If it weren't for the family Su getting close to the county governor, as early as 15 years ago, I would have personally slaughtered the family Su. Yan Hua said word by word. 15 years ago, he achieved great success in demonic arts and entered the 4th grade. He severely injured the master of the Su family at that time with one move. Unfortunately, in the end, the county governor came forward to protect the family Su. The county governor was a 4th grade official of the Empire of Tang. He represented the majesty of the Empire of Tang. It was far from what Yan Hua could resist at that time. County governor? The man in the first position smiled contemptuously. When the sect master comes out, it will be the day when the demon sect will shake the world. At that time, what is a mere county governor? The man paused for a while before continuing. The matter between you and the family Su is the matter of the demon sect. However, you have to wait for a while. Now that the sect master is about to come out, the grievances between you and the family Su will be put aside for the time being. When the sect master comes out, it will be the time for the demon sect to settle the score. The man reminded Yan Hua not to act impulsively. I, Yan Hua, will naturally listen to the words of the vice sect master. Yanhua said in a deep voice. Although he was eager to take revenge, he also knew the priorities of the matter. Now that the sect master is coming out, no mistakes can be made. As a guardian of the demon sect at this time, if he dares to leave without permission, it will definitely be a felony. Very good. The man in the first position was obviously very satisfied with Yanhua's attitude and nodded. This is the information about the family Su that I asked people to investigate. It records the names of 208 people in the family Su. The man in the first position flicked his finger, and an envelope suddenly floated in front of Yanhua. Thank you, Vice Sect Master. Yanhua was overjoyed when he heard this. Since the Vice Sect Master had begun to investigate the family Su, he was obviously prepared to avenge him. And with the demon sect behind him, why would Yanhua be afraid of a mere county governor? Thinking of this, Yanhua excitedly opened the envelope and glanced at it. Vice Sect Master? Yanhua frowned slightly. Over the years, I have also investigated the family Su. 15 years ago, the family Su dismissed the disciples of the clan. Over the years, although these disciples have returned to the clan, there is still one person who has not returned. Oh! The eyes of the man in the first position flashed. Who? The third son of the family Su. Yanhua said in a deep voice. Su Qin. I only found out that this Su Qin has entered the Shaolin Temple. As for the rest, I don't know. Yanhua looked at the man in the first position. Shaolin Temple. The man in the first position frowned, then relaxed. The world thinks that the Shaolin Temple has declined, but only the demon sect knows that there is still a grade 1 great grandmaster in the Shaolin Temple. However, as long as we wait for the sect master to come out, the Shaolin Temple is nothing. The man in the first position said indifferently. Thank you, Vice Sect Master. Yanhua was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. At this moment, a demon sect disciple hurried over. Vice Sect Master. There is a monk outside looking for Protector Yan. Monk. The man in the first position looked puzzled. I don't know any monks. Yanhua said without hesitation. If this monk is a disciple of the Shaolin Temple, we can capture him and interrogate him about the third son of the family Su. Yanhua suddenly thought of something and said, yes. The man in the first position nodded slightly and looked at the demon sect disciple. Hurry up, remember, I want him alive. The rest of the demon sect martial artists looked calm and did not think that the vice sect master was wrong. Yongzhou is the territory of the demon sect. Here, not to mention the Shaolin Temple, even if many righteous sects come together, they can't do anything to them. Just as the demon sect martial artists were waiting to capture the monk and torture him to find out the details of the Shaolin Temple, a leisurely voice sounded. You don't have to do it. As soon as this voice appeared, a rolling divine sense quickly spread and shrouded the entire hall in an instant. A young monk wearing a gray robe walked hundreds of meters in one step and arrived outside the hall. Chapter 42. Who is it? The deputy sect master of the Demon Gate, who was sitting at the head of the table, narrowed his eyes. His gaze was sharp as he stared out of the hall like an eagle. A terrifying demonic aura rushed out of his body and filled the surrounding air. The faces of the other demon sect martial artists also changed. They were all martial artists in the upper realm, but they didn't notice anyone approaching the hall. This was the headquarters of the demon sect, and there were demon sect martial artists everywhere. But now someone was at their door, and they didn't even notice. This was simply provoking the entire demon sect. In an instant, all the demon sect martial artists in the hall secretly circulated their internal force, ready to attack at any time. Under everyone's gaze, a young monk in a gray robe slowly walked in from outside the hall. Monk! The demon sect vice sect master frowned. They originally thought that it was a righteous ancestor in the upper realm, but they didn't expect it to be a monk. Most of the monks in the Empire of Tang are from the Shaolin Temple. Although the Shaolin Temple is also one of the righteous sects, it has always ignored the struggle of the Jianghu. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any senior monk of the Shaolin Temple who would take the initiative to appear in the headquarters of the demon sect. Vice Sect Master. He is the one who just asked to see Protector Yan outside. When the demon sect disciple saw Su Qin, he couldn't help but exclaim, Huh! The demon sect vice sect master turned his gaze and looked at Yanhua not far away. I finally found you. Su Qin also looked at Yanhua with a smile on his face. Although the eyes of truth can see through all qi, as long as Su Qin sees it, even if it is thousands of miles away, he can quickly lock the position. But Su Qin has never seen Yanhua. Since he has never seen Yanhua, he can't quickly find Yanhua from the thousands of martial artists in the southern Witch Mountain. Therefore, Su Qin didn't immediately force his way in. Instead, he said that he was looking for Yanhua, and waited for the demon sect disciple to take the initiative to bring him to Yanhua. Looking for me? Yanhua frowned. Yes, looking for you. Su Qin nodded and said with a smile, to kill you. As soon as these words came out, all the demon sect martial artists in the hall almost thought that they had misheard. Come to the demon sect's headquarters to kill the demon sect's guardian? How dare you? The evil cult's vice sect master was so angry that he laughed. He originally wanted to test Su Qin's background. After all, this monk was able to appear here so quietly, so he probably had some confidence. But now, seeing how arrogant the other party was, the vice sect master of the demon sect finally couldn't take it anymore. Die! The vice sect leader of the demon sect sneered. Demonic chi vibrated and turned into an inescapable net that shrouded Su Qin. The Demon Gate's deputy sect leader was a rank 2 martial artist to begin with. In his fury, he attacked with all his might. An ordinary grade 2 martial artist could only retreat in the face of the Demon Gate deputy sect master's attack. Even a grade 1 great grandmaster would frown. It could be said that, in the entire demon sect, other than the sect master who was still in seclusion, no one else could block this attack. However, under the delighted gazes of all the demon sect martial artists, Su Qin did not even look at the vice sect master. He casually raised his right hand and pointed from afar. Whoosh! A powerful force flashed and instantly cut through the heavy demonic chi and directly pierced the vice sect master's forehead. You? The vice sect master's eyes widened and he fell to the ground with a plop. Before his death, the vice sect master never thought that he, a dignified grade 2 martial artist, would not even be able to block a single move. Dead silence. The entire great hall fell into a strange silence. All the demon sect martial artists only felt a chill explode in their minds. In their eyes, the high and mighty vice sect master of the demon sect died so simply? In an instant. Many demon sect martial artists' faces turned pale, and thoughts of retreating rose in their hearts. The people of the demon sect were selfish. At this moment, the vice sect master of the demon sect died. Not only did they not think about revenge, but they also thought about how to escape. Let's attack together. This person must have consumed a lot of energy just now. Now that we join forces, we can definitely kill him. At this moment, a demon sect grade 3 martial artist shouted, whoever can kill this person with their own hands, when the sect master comes out, he will definitely reward you. Suddenly, the other demon sect martial artists heard this, and their eyes flashed slightly. But, the next moment, Su Qin took a step forward, stretched out his slender right hand, and slammed it down. Rumble! The terrifying internal force continued to gather, and like a heavy hammer, it swept through many demon sect martial artists. Plop! 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 At least 10 upper realm demon sect martial artists' bodies shook and turned into a pool of blood. The remaining demon sect martial artists' hands and feet were cold, and they almost sat on the ground in fright. Even with the demon sect's heritage, there were only 20 upper realm martial artists. Now under Su Qin's slap, more than half of them died. Is he still human? Suddenly, at this moment, in the depths of the great hall, a violent demonic aura suddenly erupted. You dare to start a massacre here? Does your excellency want to fight to the death with my demon sect? A terrifying aura rose into the sky, quickly coming from the depths of the great hall. As soon as this aura appeared, the other demon sect disciples' faces showed ecstasy. It's the sect master. The sect master has come out. Yes, before the sect master went into seclusion, he was peak grade 2. Now that he has come out, he has at least reached grade 1 great grandmaster. Ah, you bald donkey. Kneel down and beg for mercy. The demon sect martial artists instantly became confident and shouted at Su Qin. Sect master? Su Qin turned his gaze and looked into the depths of the great hall. As early as before entering the southern Witch Mountain, Su Qin knew through eyes of truth that there was an aura in the demon sect headquarters. At this time, it seems that the existence who has just stepped into Grade 1 should be the demon sect master. Rumble. The demonic aura filled the air. Although the demon sect master is getting closer and closer, the aura of a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster is getting stronger and stronger. Although the demon sect master has just entered Grade 1 and hasn't even consolidated his realm, Grade 1 is Grade 1. Even if it's just a beginner, he is completely above Grade 2. The sect master is out? Yanhua was even more overjoyed. At first, when he heard that Su Qin came to kill him, he was still disdainful. But when Su Qin killed the vice sect master and more than a dozen upper realm martial artists, Yanhua finally panicked. He just entered the upper realm. Even the vice sect master couldn't block Su Qin's blow, let alone him? Welcome, sect master. Yanhua knelt on one knee and said with excitement, with the strength of the demon sect master, he may not be able to kill Su Qin, but at least he can repel him. At that time, wouldn't Yanhua be safe? However, just then, a voice suddenly sounded in Yanhua's ears. I want to know who gave you hope that you can survive? This voice came into Yanhua's ears out of thin air. Yanhua was shocked and suddenly looked up, only to find that Su Qin was already standing next to him. Not good. Yanhua looked shocked. Is it him? The demon sect master gave you hope? Su Qin looked calm. Under Yanhua's incredulous gaze, he raised his right hand towards the depths of the great hall and gently patted the demon sect master who was rushing over. The terrifying internal force directly smashed the demon sect master into meat paste. Chapter 43. Dead Silence. Complete dead silence. All the demon sect martial artists who were preparing to greet the sect master seemed to have been strangled, their faces ashen. They never thought that there would be such a powerful person in the world. With just a casual blow, he could turn the sect master of the demon sect into a meat paste. One must know. After the sect master came out, he was already a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster. Killing a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster with one slap? How is this possible? If they had not seen it with their own eyes, even if they were beaten to death, no one would believe this fact. Perhaps the imperial teacher of the Mengyuan Empire, Daoist Zhang of the Wudong true martial lineage, could do this. But whether it is the imperial teacher or Daoist Zhang, they are both peerless figures who have shaken the world for decades. Who is Su Qin? In the eyes of all the demon sect martial artists, Su Qin is just a young monk. Before today, they had never even heard of Su Qin. You. Who are you? What hatred do you have with me? Yanhua moved his lips, looking desperate. At this moment, Yanhua knew that he was going to die. In front of an existence that can kill a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster with one slap, how can Yanhua resist? However, before he dies, Yanhua also wants to know why he died. Although Yanhua is a demon sect disciple and has killed countless people, he has never provoked such a terrifying martial artist like Su Qin. I killed. Su Qin shook his head when he heard this. There is no need for a reason. The next moment, the light in Yanhua's eyes quickly dimmed, and his whole body fell to the ground with a plop, dead. Just kill them all. Su Qin looked at the other demon sect martial artists in the main hall. These demon sect martial artists are basically stained with blood. Su Qin's action can be regarded as completely eliminating evil for the people. If other eminent monks of the Shaolin Temple were here, they might try to enlighten these demon sect martial artists, or at least imprison them in the demon subduing tower. But Su Qin was too lazy to do so. Although he had been in the Shaolin Temple for 15 years, he did not agree with every philosophy of the Shaolin Temple. Even the Buddha had the wrath of the Vajra, and not a blind benevolence. A moment later, Su Qin walked out of the hall. At this time, many demon sect martial artists outside the hall had no idea that their sect master, vice sect master, and more than a dozen elders of the upper realm had all fallen. Don't bother with these small fries. Su Qin ignored the other demon sect martial artists. The main reason was that the demon sect's elites had long been wiped out by Su Qin. These demon sect martial artists outside could not cause any trouble at all. After a few hours, once the news of what had happened in the hall spread out, These demon sect martial artists would probably scatter on their own without the need for anyone to make a move. After losing the control of so many upper realm cultivators, the demon sect had lost its backbone and was not worth mentioning at all. Of course, the most important point was that there were thousands of demon sect martial artists in the southern Witch Mountain, and they were scattered all over the southern Witch Mountain. Even if Su Qin had the eyes of truth to lock the specific location of these demon sect martial artists, it would take at least a few hours to catch them all in one fell swoop. Once he wasted time here, it may delay the time for Su Qin to return to his family Su. At that time the loss would outweigh the gain. It's still more dangerous outside than in the Shaolin Temple, Su Qin sighed softly. In the Shaolin Temple, although Su Qin had encountered Grade 1 Great Grandmasters, those Grade 1 Great Grandmasters were not like Zhou Sanren, whose vitality had long declined and was waiting to die of old age. They were the Grade 1A holy monk in the back mountain who used secret techniques to survive. As for the normal Grade 1 Great Grandmasters, there was not a single one. But now, less than half a day after Su Qin came out of the Shaolin Temple, he encountered a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster who had just broken through and was in his peak state. Although the Grade 1 Great Grandmaster was slapped to death by him, Su Qin did not have the slightest complacency. There is always someone better than you. Today, a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster suddenly popped out. Maybe one day a real Arhat will pop out. When I come back from the family Su this time, I will prepare to break through to the Arhat realm. Su Qin made a decision in his heart. With the burning heavens demon fire to purify his internal strength, Su Qin's internal strength will transform sooner or later, in a few years. When the divine sense, body and internal strength become one, Su Qin will reach Grade 1 perfection and truly break through to the Arhat realm. According to the ancient records in the scripture pavilion, if you want to achieve the Arhat realm, not only do you need to transform your body, internal strength, and divine sense 3 times, but you also need to grasp a wisp of qi between heaven and earth. Su Qin thought silently in his heart. Throughout the world, although a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster is extremely rare, there will be some born in every era. There are even some peak Grade 1 Great Grandmasters. For example, in this era, the imperial teacher of the Mengyuan Empire, Daoist Zhang, and eunuch Zhao of the Emperor of Tang Palace are all peak Grade 1 Great Grandmasters. But the real Arhat or legend is hard to come by in an era or even several eras. Why is this? Because it is too difficult. For ordinary martial artists, even if they are talented, it will take at least 100 years or even close to 200 years to cultivate to Grade 1 and transform their internal strength, body, and divine sense. It must be known that the limit of a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster is 200 years for Shouyuan. Generally, for a peak Grade 1 who has reached the 3rd transformation realm, if there is no opportunity like Su Qin to forge his body with the power of yin and yang, he should be close to Shouyuan's limit. At this time, these peak Grade 1s still need to patiently grasp the wisp of qi between heaven and earth in order to reach a higher level. If they can't grasp it, they can only wait to die of old age. However, all this is not a problem for Su Qin at all. According to Su Qin's guess, he can completely transform his internal strength before the age of 30. At that time, Su Qin will have 370 years to grasp the wisp of qi between heaven and earth. Under these conditions, if Su Qin can't grasp it, then the Arhat realm should not exist in this world. Besides, the eyes of truth can see through all qi. Maybe the wisp of qi needed to break through the Arhat realm is also within the observation of the eyes of truth. That's right. As the headquarters of the demon sect, this place should have the so-called Dao accumulation that can let me sign in. Su Qin suddenly thought of something and said in his heart, "System, sign in for me." The next moment, congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the demon art, Heavenly Demon Strategy. Heavenly Demon Strategy? Su Qin's face was surprised. The Heavenly Demon Strategy is the supreme secret technique of the demon sect. It is known as the origin of the demon path. Many secret techniques and demon arts of the demon sect are derived from the Heavenly Demon Strategy. In a way, without the Heavenly Demon Strategy, the demon sect might not even exist in this world. It turned out to be the Heavenly Demon Strategy. Chapter 44. Southern Witch Mountain. Su Qin's mind was immersed in the Sky Devil strategy. As the supreme secret of the demon sect, The level of the Sky Devil strategy could definitely be ranked in the top 20 among the many divine skills that Su Qin had mastered. Especially the last volume of the Sky Devil strategy, the Great Tao Heart Seed Demon Art. Its level of profoundness could even be ranked in the top 10, second only to the Buddha's palm, which was claimed to have been personally taught by the Buddha, and several fundamental skills mastered by the Devil Buddha. Tao Heart Seed Demon. From Tao to Demon. From Demon to Tao. Countless demon path characters collided in Su Qin's mind, constantly merging and refining. An hour later, Su Qin slowly opened his eyes. The Great Tao Heart Seed Demon Art is indeed worthy of its reputation. Monstrous demon intent faintly appeared in the depths of Su Qin's eyes, but all the demon intent was immediately suppressed by a giant golden Buddha. Unfortunately, the demon path is not the path that I want to walk. Su Qin shook his head slightly. Even if it was the fundamental skills of the Devil Buddha, Su Qin only comprehended them for reference, not as his main skill. It's about time. Su Qin looked at the sky, took a step, and disappeared on the spot. Zhangzhou's Yin City. Yin City was an inconspicuous small city in the Empire of Tang. But today, Yin City was extraordinarily lively. The streets were decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Other than that, martial artists who were rarely seen were now seen every few steps they took. Because today, the daughter of Yin City's family Su was getting married. The family Su was the largest family in Yin City, and Patriarch Su Shiming took the opportunity to invite heroes. Many sects in Zhangzhou's martial arts world were willing to give face and come. After all, Su Shiming was not only the patriarch of the family Su, but also a rank 5 martial artist. Perhaps in the Empire of Tang, a rank 5 martial artist was nothing. But in this remote Zhangzhou's martial arts world, a rank 5 martial artist was definitely a powerhouse. There was an endless stream of martial artists entering and exiting the Su residence. The family Su was rich and overbearing. They invited all the heroes of the Tsang province. As long as they came to congratulate the daughter of the family Su, they would be able to enter the Su mansion and drink a cup of wedding wine. Of course, the wine was secondary. Many martial artists also wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to gather. At this moment, inside the Su residence, countless warriors from all over the Zhangzhou kept talking. A monk like you can drink. At this moment, a boorish man looked at a young monk who was about to pick up a wine cup and joked. The boorish man didn't have any other intentions. At this moment, the Su residence was filled with all sorts of people. Whether or not this young monk was a monk was another matter. A monk? The young monk smiled. This young monk was naturally Su Qin, who had hurried over. Buddha never said that monks are not allowed to drink. Su Qin glanced at the boorish man and said casually. Hearing this, the boorish man pondered for a moment and actually felt that Su Qin's words made some sense. Monks abstained from meat and drink, but from the beginning to the end, there was no source for these rules. No one could prove that these rules were said by Buddha. Since Buddha didn't say these words, why should they abide by them? You're quite an interesting monk. The boorish man grinned and said. He had traveled extensively and had met countless people, including many monks. However, all the monks that the boorish man had met were extremely old-fashioned. Su Qin was the first one who was as carefree as him. Su Qin ignored the boorish man. He looked at the wedding wine placed in front of him and gently picked it up. He paused in a certain direction in the depths of the Su residence for a while, and then drank it in one gulp. Little sister, long time no see. At the same time, in the depths of the Su residence, Su Yueyun looked disappointed. Third brother didn't come? Su Yueyun couldn't help but ask. The patriarch of the Su family, Su Shiming, shook his head and said, the rules of the Shaolin Temple are strict. I can only send the news in the form of a letter, but whether Qin can come out or not is not up to me. Su Shiming sighed softly. 15 years ago, family Su's great enemy, Yan Hua, came and seriously injured him with a raise of his hand. At that time, Su Shiming thought that family Su was about to be destroyed, so even though he knew that it was easy to enter the Shaolin Temple but difficult to come out, he still forced Su Qin to go in. After all, it was better to be a monk for a lifetime than to die in the hands of that great enemy. But Su Shiming didn't expect that he would meet the Zhangzhou county governor later. The county governor was quite appreciative of him, and directly came out to force Family Su's great enemy to retreat. It's all my fault for not thinking it through. Su Shimin sighed softly. How could he have thought that the Su family would be able to survive that calamity? In the Su residence, many martial artists were chatting happily. Su Qin, on the other hand, sat silently in his seat. 15 years had passed and things had changed. Even if he stood in front of Su Shiming, he might not be able to recognize him. Do you know that Family Su still has a third young master? At this moment, the rough man next to him whispered. Third young master? The surrounding warriors were puzzled. They had only heard of Family Su's first young master, second young master, and the daughter. As for the third young master, this was the first time they had heard of him. Hee. You don't know, right? The rough man said proudly. This is something that happened 15 years ago. The rough man's words immediately aroused everyone's curiosity. They all began to ask questions. The rough man didn't put on airs and directly said, 15 years ago, Family Su encountered a great disaster. After this disaster, Family Su's third young master disappeared. No one knows where he went. Even Family Su's disciples are afraid of this matter. Speaking of this, the rough man looked around and lowered his voice. I guess that Family Su's third young master should have died in that disaster 15 years ago. Otherwise, why hasn't he appeared after so many years? The rough man's analysis was reasonable. The other warriors immediately nodded secretly. Even Su Qin looked at the rough man a few more times. Monk, do you think what I said makes sense? The rough man seemed to have noticed Su Qin's gaze and looked at Su Qin with a grin. It makes sense, Su Qin said seriously. Suddenly, at this moment, there was a noise at the entrance of the Su residence. The groom is coming. A voice rang out, and the gazes of many cultivators immediately gathered at the door. They wanted to see what kind of person could marry the daughter of the Su family. Soon, under the watchful eyes of everyone, a man in a groom's suit strode in. This man's facial features were ordinary. Although there was a hint of nobility in his gestures, he was just an ordinary person. What? The man that Family Su's daughter is going to marry is not a warrior? Countless people looked at each other and only felt that it was incredible. Family Su was a martial arts family. Even the guards in the residence were warriors. Family Su's daughter Su Yueyun was also ranked. But now they saw that the Family Su's son-in-law was actually an ordinary person, just as everyone was talking about it. Su Qin also looked at the groom. This is Chapter 45. In the Family Su's mansion, there was an uproar. Many martial artists were discussing in disbelief. Quiet down. Su Shimin stood up and raised his hand. The aura of a rank 5 martial artist appeared. Suddenly, everyone fell silent. Although they did not know why the Family Su would choose an ordinary son-in-law, since Su Shimin had made this decision, it was not something they could interfere with. Among all of them, only Su Qin had a strange look on his face. The fate of the nation? Why is 1/10 of the fate of the Tang dynasty gathered on him? Su Qin observed all the auras with the eye of truth. Naturally, he noticed that there was an unfathomable fate of the nation hidden on the groom. The Emperor of Tang is not dead, so the fate of the Tang dynasty will not dissipate. Besides, even if the Tang dynasty is destroyed, the fate of the nation will be entrusted to the Emperor of Tang's family. Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated as one thought after another flashed through his mind. From the letter that the Family Su sent to him, he knew that the person his little sister was going to marry was just an ordinary person. A real ordinary person. He had no parents. Although his family background was clean compared to the dignified Family Su, it was like heaven and earth. Logically speaking, the two of them should not have any interaction at all. But his little sister was willing. Therefore, even if Su Shiming did not agree, he did not force his little sister. Originally, Su Qin also thought that his brother-in-law was just an ordinary person. Su Qin did not resist this. Having lived 2 lives, Su Qin was very open-minded. As long as his little sister loved each other, it was fine. But now Su Qin's gaze kept sweeping back and forth on the groom. Such a huge fate of the nation is no longer something a prince can bear. Su Qin thought in his heart. A few years ago, Concubine Li and her daughter of the Emperor of Tang's palace came to the Shaolin Temple to avoid disaster. At that time, Su Qin had also used the Eye of Truth to observe Imperial Concubine Li's daughter. The little princess of the Empire of Tang also had strands of the fate of the Empire of Tang, but compared with the current groom, it was no different from a small river and a vast ocean. Now that the Emperor of Tang is in the old age, all the princes are fighting both openly and covertly. All of them are eyeing the throne. The various dukes and vassals all place their bets, openly and secretly supporting a certain prince in exchange for the merit of ascending to the throne. Everyone in the court believes that the one who will sit on the throne in the future will definitely be one of the princes. Su Qin's train of thought became clearer and clearer. Now it seems, the Emperor of Tang, that old fox, never thought about letting those princes inherit the throne. Su Qin looked at the embarrassed expression of the bridegroom and felt that everything was laid bare in front of him. Only the royal family could bear the fate of the nation. Although Su Qin did not know why the groom in front of him appeared in Songzhou, but the blood of the royal family must flow in his body. And the Emperor of Tang obviously already knew about this prince who was wandering among the commoners. Otherwise, an ordinary prince could not have such a huge fate of the nation. And the Emperor of Tang went to great lengths to hide it from everyone. There was only one possibility. He wanted to pass the throne to him. In other words, if everything went smoothly, the groom, who was currently submissive before the eyes of many cultivators, would soon become the Emperor of the Great Tang, who stood above everyone else. Fate makes fools of people, Su Qin sighed in his heart. There were hundreds of millions of people in the Tang dynasty. Not only did his sister meet the prince who was wandering among the commoners, but she also secretly fell in love with him and even married him. The Emperor of Tang probably did not expect this to happen. Or even if the Emperor of Tang knew, he would not care. Since all of this was done by the Emperor of Tang, then there must be something left by the Emperor of Tang nearby. Su Qin opened the eyes of truth and looked in all directions. Sure enough, a few miles away there was a faint aura hidden. This aura was similar to Eunuch Hong, but much stronger than Eunuch Hong. Grade 1 Great Grandmaster. Su Qin shook his head slightly, and his eyes fell on the groom again. He should not know his identity, Su Qin thought silently in his heart. The Emperor of Tang deceived everyone and paid such a big price, so he would definitely be cautious. And at this moment, the groom stood together with Su Yueyun, ready to bow to heaven and earth. Yunyang. The groom looked at Su Yueyun and said firmly, I know that I am just a poor scholar and have no ability, but I, Li Shang, swear that one day, you will not regret marrying me. Su Yueyun pursed her lips and smiled but did not speak. Su Qin looked from a distance, and after confirming that his little sister really liked him, he looked away. Just when Su Qin was about to leave, he felt something and looked at several corners of the Su residence. In these corners there were more than a dozen martial artists operating their internal strength to the limit, ready to attack at any time. Assassination. Su Qin frowned. These more than a dozen martial artists were all in the middle realm, and 2 of them had even reached the upper realm. Are they targeting the family Su? Su Qin narrowed his eyes slightly and found that the target of these martial artists was not anyone in the family Su, but the groom. Did someone notice the hand of the Emperor of Tang? Su Qin guessed in his heart. It should be just a faint detection, not a confirmation. Otherwise, it would not be an upper realm cultivator, but a grade 1 Great Grandmaster. This time, bow to heaven and earth. The bride and groom were about to bow to heaven and earth. Suddenly, at this moment, stab! A piercing killing intent broke out and swept through the entire Su residence. A strong man suddenly jumped up and rushed toward the bridegroom. Bold! Su Shiming was furious. He specially invited the martial artists and took this opportunity to show the strength of the family Su to the Cangzhou martial artists. If it was obstructed and destroyed, wouldn't he lose face in Cangzhou? Just when Su Shimin was about to make a move, another cold killing intent locked onto him. This is upper realm? Su Shimin was stiff, he couldn't believe it. He never dreamed that it would cause an upper realm martial artist to make a move. Under the upper realm's killing intent, Su Shimin felt his heartbeat almost stop. Even moving was extremely difficult, let alone stopping the assassin. Not good. Su Shimin's heart trembled. At this moment, The other family Su martial artists also reacted and quickly rushed to the high platform, wanting to protect the bride and groom. Die! Several more figures burst out, and several family Su martial artists who were ready to protect the newlyweds flew out in an instant. Plop! These family Su martial artists fell to the ground and fainted. This scene suddenly awakened everyone on the scene. Assassins with this kind of strength? Who did the family Su offend? Many martial artists trembled in their hearts and began to flee. In the face of disaster, everyone fled. They just came to congratulate the family Su, not to sell their lives for the family Su. If the assassin wasn't strong, these martial artists wouldn't mind making a move in exchange for a favor from the family Su. But judging from the situation on the field, this group of assassins was simply terrifying to the extreme. If they dared to stop them, the several family Su martial artists who fainted were an example. Yuner, go quickly. At this time, the groom Li Shang obviously realized something and pushed Su Yueyun away. If we die together. Su Yueyun tightly held the groom Li Shang's arm. Whoosh! In an instant. At this moment, the assassin was already 10 meters away from Su Yueyun. With the assassin's speed, this distance was almost gone in a flash. Yuner, why do you have to do this? On the high platform, the groom Li Shang smiled bitterly, looking at Su Yueyun who was holding his arm tightly. It's over. Not far away, the upper realm assassin who suppressed Su Shiming to the point that he couldn't move slightly nodded. At this moment, things were almost a foregone conclusion. He didn't even have the need to continue watching. For a small family like the family Su, wanting to stop them was tantamount to a fool's dream. Just when the upper realm assassin glanced at the groom Li Shang who was waiting for death with his eyes closed and was about to turn around and leave. Sigh! A soft sigh resounded in his ears. Who is it? The upper realm assassin was startled and looked up abruptly. However, with this look he saw a scene that he would never forget for the rest of his life. He saw a faint golden glazed light appear, accompanied by the spreading of the Buddha's light. The upper realm assassin saw a hazy figure coming over. This hazy figure was shrouded in Buddha's light. Illusory golden lotuses slowly bloomed, and the sound of Zen filled the air. It was heavy and solemn as it walked over step by step. Chapter 46. The light of Buddha filled the air. The entire Su residence was shrouded in the light of Buddha. Golden lotuses slowly bloomed in the void, pure and transparent like glass, untainted by dust. A hazy figure walked out from the light of Buddha. It was as if all the light of Buddha was born from him. The moment this figure walked out, a voice rang out. Time seemed to have stood still. Everyone in the Su family, including the upper realm assassin, felt a terrifying pressure covering them. His internal strength stopped circulating. His heart slowed down. His blood almost solidified. No! This is... A huge wave was set off in the upper realm assassin's mind. Such a terrifying aura was simply unheard of. Even the grade 1 great grandmasters that the upper realm assassin knew could not create such a terrifying scene just by releasing their aura. Plop! Under the incredulous gaze of the upper realm assassin, the hazy figure shrouded in the light of Buddha took a step, and the assassin who rushed towards Su Yueyun fell to the ground with a plop. The hazy figure took another step, and the second assassin also fell to the ground. Almost in an instant, the hazy figure took 7 steps, and 7 assassins fell to the ground without any suspense. The strength of these assassins was different, but the weakest was in the middle realm, and the strongest was another upper realm assassin. However, whether it was the middle realm assassin or the upper realm assassin, under the hazy figure's steps, they had no ability to resist. With each step, one person died. Not good. In the next moment, the upper realm assassin's scalp went numb, because at this moment almost all the assassins on the field were dead, and only he was still alive. The reason why the upper realm assassin was not dead yet was because he did not make a move at all. He only used his aura to suppress the family Su's patriarch Su Shiming. He was the furthest away from the high platform where Su Yueyun and the groom were. However, no matter how far away he was, the hazy figure shrouded in the light of Buddha had already begun to take his 8th step. Run! The last upper realm assassin did not hesitate to use all the forbidden techniques he had mastered, trying to survive. Although these forbidden techniques can greatly improve his strength, The hidden dangers are great. After this time, even if he can survive, his strength will drop by a realm, and he may even directly become a cripple. However, compared to death, any price he had to pay was worth it. Wang. The eyes of the upper realm assassin instantly turned blood red, and the internal strength that had stopped circulating began to rise. The next moment, the hazy figure shrouded in Buddhist light took the 8th step. The upper realm cultivators, who were originally filled with joy, now felt as if the world was collapsing. Everything ceased to exist as they fell to the ground with a plop. After all the assassins were dead, the Buddha's light continued to spread. The hazy figure slowly walked towards the newcomer's high platform. You are. Su Yueyun opened his eyes wide, trying to see the hazy figure that was gradually approaching. Unfortunately, under the shroud of the Buddha's light, Su Yueyun could only vaguely recognize that this hazy figure was tall and slender. As for the rest, such as his facial features and so on, it was completely impossible to see clearly. However, for some reason, Su Yueyun felt very close to this hazy figure, as if it was a relative he had not seen for many years. Buddhist light filled the air. The hazy figure stopped in front of Su Yueyun. Who are you? Su Yueyun subconsciously moved back a little. The Buddha's light shrouded everyone, except for Su Yueyun. Under the infiltration of the Buddha's light, Su Yueyun not only did not feel uncomfortable, but also felt very comfortable. Who am I? The hazy figure's tone was calm, as if he was lost. When Su Yueyun heard this, he felt as if something in his heart was broken, and he had the urge to cry. At this time, the hazy figure raised his hand, took off a jade pendant hanging around his neck, and put it in Su Yueyun's hand. Wear it? Don't leave it, it will keep you safe and happy. Su Yueyun stared at the jade pendant in his hand, not knowing what to say. This jade pendant was very ordinary. As the daughter of the Su family, Su Yueyun usually looked down on this kind of jade pendant. But at this time, Su Yueyun held this jade pendant, and felt an inexplicable sense of security in his heart. It was as if the hazy figure was telling the truth, that she would be safe and happy as long as she wore this jade pendant. Su Qin put down the jade pendant and took a last look at Su Yueyun. The jade pendant he left was naturally not an ordinary jade pendant. Before leaving the Shaolin Temple, Su Qin had comprehended the Devil Buddha's demonic thought division parasitism method. He divided a strand of his own divine thoughts and integrated it into the jade pendant. 900 years ago, the Devil Buddha was sealed by the Buddha's palm. It was by constantly dividing his demonic thoughts every 100 years that he bewitched one successor of the Devil Buddha after another, and almost destroyed the Shaolin Temple. Although Su Qin can't do it to the same extent as the Devil Buddha, it is not a problem for him to leave a strand of his divine thoughts in the jade pendant. When Su Yueyun is in a life and death situation, he can burst out with power to save her life. With Su Qin's current strength, even if it's just a strand of his divine thoughts, anyone below Grade 1 Great Grandmaster will almost certainly die. Even a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster will be seriously injured on the spot. As for Peak Grade 1, this strand of divine thoughts can't do anything to a Peak Grade 1. But a Peak Grade 1 is not a fool. Naturally, he can see what this jade pendant represents. There is no Peak Grade 1, after knowing that Su Yueyun is backed by a powerhouse of at least the same level, will still have the intention to kill. One must know that there are only a few Peak Grade 1 in the world. They are afraid of each other and are not willing to fight. Because for most Peak Grade 1, the most important thing is always to go further and break through the myth bottleneck. In addition, power, wealth, beauty, it's not worth mentioning in their eyes. For example, Daoist Zhang of Wudong Mountain's true martial lineage, even if he has the strength to suppress the world, he still won't take a step out of Wudong Mountain. There is also the imperial teacher of the Meng Yuan Empire. He doesn't care about the position of the monarch. Therefore, Su Qin left this jade pendant to Su Yueyun. In a way, it can indeed keep her safe and happy. Who are you? Why did you give it to me? Su Yueyun suddenly looked up, only to find that the hazy figure had disappeared. The Buddha's light receded. The golden lotus melted. The pressure that shrouded everyone was swept away. Yin'er, are you okay? The groom Li Shang asked with concern. I'm fine. Su Yueyun shook her head, subconsciously clenched the jade pendant in her hand, and whispered, I seem to have seen my third brother. Third brother? The groom was stunned. He knew that Su Yueyun had a third brother. But didn't this third brother disappear 15 years ago? At this moment, although the Buddha's light disappeared, but the family Su mansion was still silent. Countless martial artists from all over Zhangzhou were shocked to the extreme. Although they couldn't move just now, but moving meant that they couldn't see anything. The hazy figure shrouded in the Buddha's light seemed to fill the world. It was supreme, powerful, and vast. Buddha has shown his power. Several weak martial artists barely managed to struggle out of their shock. Buddha. The other martial artists trembled and didn't dare to look up. Huh. Where's that monk? Chapter 47. Maybe he ran to other places in the chaos just now? The rough man didn't think much about it and followed the other martial artists to worship the Buddha, who just appeared. When the assassin just appeared, many martial artists fled in chaos. In the rough man's view, the interesting monk may have left at that time. Oh Buddha! The rough man looked amazed. He has traveled extensively and naturally knew that the hazy figure that appeared just now, even if it wasn't the legendary Buddha, it must be an unimaginable powerhouse. In the face of such an existence that almost reached the end of the 9th grade martial Tao, it was completely worthy of the worship of the martial artists present. Yuna, are you okay? Su Shimin quickly came to Su Yueyun and asked with concern. It's good that you're okay. It's good that you're okay. Su Shimin breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, when he was locked on by the upper realm assassin hiding in the dark, Su Shimin was almost desperate. This feeling was even more desperate than 15 years ago, when the family Su's enemy, Yan Hua, came. But he didn't expect that the situation would turn around. Those terrifying assassins were actually dealt with by a terrifying existence passing by. My family Su is so lucky to have such a powerhouse come to save us. Su Shimin looked terrified and bowed to the crowd. Senior came to save us. My family Su is grateful. If Senior needs anything in the future, we will definitely not refuse. As a 5th grade martial artist, Su Shimin's eyesight is of course better than the other martial artists present. He wouldn't really believe that it was Buddha. After a long time, no one responded. Su Shimin slowly straightened his back, looking slightly regretful. Although he didn't know why the senior wanted to save his family Su, but if he took this opportunity to get in touch with this senior, it would definitely be an unprecedented good fortune for his family Su. But unfortunately, after the senior took action, he was too lazy to show up. Father. At this moment, Su Yueyun hesitated for a while and couldn't help but say, I feel that the person just now seemed to be third brother, Qin. Su Shimin was stunned for a moment. Then, he looked shocked and reprimanded, nonsense. If Senior were to find out that you spoke like that, wouldn't it be a disaster for our family Su in a fit of anger? Su Shimin glared at Su Yueyun. Su Shimin had never thought that this daughter of his would actually dare to have such delusions. That Senior's strength was exceedingly high, and he was definitely one of the top experts in the world. How could he be related to Su Qin, who was sent to the Shaolin Temple 15 years ago? Putting aside the fact that Su Qin had no martial arts aptitude, it was impossible for him to become a martial artist in his lifetime. So what if Su Qin was a peerless genius? At the very most, Su Qin was only 25 years old this year. What kind of strength could a 25-year-old have? 9th rank? Rank 8? Or ranked 7? When Su Yueyun saw Su Shimin's serious expression, he didn't dare to continue talking. And at this moment, in a certain corner of the Su family's mansion, a feminine figure stood silently. This figure's eyes were cold, and he quickly glanced at the assassin's corpse on the ground. His expression was frighteningly cold. Did His Highness take action? This figure was the Grade 1 Great Grandmaster who had just arrived. His surname was Liu, and he was called Eunuch Liu. He was a red-clothed eunuch in the palace. 20 years ago, Eunuch Liu was ordered by the Emperor of Tang to take Prince Li Shang out of the imperial palace and put him among the people to experience the hardships of the world. During this period, Eunuch Liu secretly protected Prince Li Shang. But last night, Eunuch Liu suddenly felt that there were some problems with his cultivation, so he went a few miles away to rest. But what Eunuch Liu did not expect was that in this short period of time, Prince Li Shang was assassinated. Moreover, the method of assassinating the assassin was very similar to an organization under the command of the princes. Damn it! Eunuch Lu was scared. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen to him if the assassination was successful, and Prince Li Shang died an unnatural death. Although Eunuch Lu could not see the vast national destiny in Prince Li Shang's body, the Emperor of Tang paid such a huge price and ordered him to take Prince Li Shang out of the imperial palace. He knew that Prince Li Shang had a great relationship with him. Once something went wrong, he would not be able to absolve himself from the blame. However, who stopped the assassination? Eunuch Lu frowned. Although many martial artists were shouting, "Buddha's divinity manifestation," Yi Zichen didn't say anything. But Eunuch Lu did not believe this at all. He just rushed over and did not see the sky full of Buddha's light. Eunuch Lu walked to the assassins and began to check their injuries. However, with this check, Eunuch Lu's pupils suddenly shrank. Because he was shocked to find that the 8 assassins on the field were almost at the same time. Their internal organs were shattered by some kind of force. This strength? Eunuch Lu was in disbelief. Although with his strength as a grade 1 great grandmaster, there would be no accident if he wanted to kill these 8 assassins. However, it was very difficult to kill them all at the same time like what was happening right now. Especially when there were 2 upper realm martial artists among them. Upper realm martial artists, even the weakest grade 3 martial artist, have their body and internal strength withstand the erosion of world's essence qi. In the face of a grade 1 great grandmaster, even if they were far from being his opponent, they would not be trampled to death like an ant. At least if Eunuch Lu wanted to kill a grade 3 martial artist, the other party might be able to struggle for a while. Moreover, before the last assassin died, he used several forbidden techniques and secret techniques, but he still died. Eunuch Lu felt incredulous. If Eunuch Lu was not mistaken, the last assassin used a forbidden technique of the imperial palace. Although the hidden dangers were huge, the improvement it brought to the user was also terrifying. A grade 3 martial artist, if using this secret technique, should be able to increase his strength to grade 2. But this assassin used several secret techniques at the same time. With the forbidden techniques superimposed on each other, Eunuch Lu even felt that the assassin's strength temporarily soared to grade 1 at the last moment. However, even so, the other party still died. His death was no different from the other middle realm assassins. The only thing that could have caused such a scene could only be the difference in strength that was as vast as a chasm. Is it possible that Eunuch Zhao did it? Eunuch Lu's heart trembled, and the great eunuch wearing a purple robe suddenly appeared in his mind. Impossible. Eunuch Zhao will only protect His Majesty. Other than that, it is absolutely impossible to leave the imperial palace. Eunuch Lu shook his head affirmatively. The reason why he was so sure was because Eunuch Zhao could not leave the imperial palace, and the reaction of the martial artists next to him. If Eunuch Zhao really took action, he would definitely not be regarded as a Buddha. Whatever. Since your highnesses have taken action, I should not be able to hide anymore. I need to go back to the imperial palace to see His Majesty. Eunuch Lu calmed down and wanted to bring Prince Li Shang back to the imperial palace as soon as possible. At the same time, in a corner of the Su residence. Chapter 48. Family Su's mansion. There was a lot of noise. Eunuch Lu's expression was uncertain, and fear appeared in the depths of his eyes. As a grade 1 great grandmaster, Eunuch Lu's eyesight and means are above most martial artists in the world. But it was precisely because of this that Eunuch Lu was more aware of what the scene in front of him meant. The more he knew, the more afraid he was. In Eunuch Lu's view, it was at least a peak grade 1 who could do all this so cleanly. Therefore, Eunuch Lu's first thought was, could it be that the purple-clothed Eunuch Zhao in the imperial palace made a move? However, this idea was rejected by him as soon as it appeared. First, it is impossible for Eunuch Zhao to leave the imperial palace. Second, even if Eunuch Zhao made a move, he would not let others think that it was a Buddha showing his divinity. Family Su. Eunuch Lu's mind turned sharply, wondering if the peak grade 1 unintentionally made a move, or if it had something to do with the family Su. After a while, Eunuch Lu shook his head and determined that the peak grade 1 should have wandered here by accident. Eunuch Lu has long known about the marriage between Prince Li Shang and the family Su's daughter. Before this, He had already investigated the family Su thoroughly. In the past 500 years, the strongest martial artist born in the family Su was only grade 4. Not even in the upper realm. Such a family Su is certainly good in a small city like Yen City, but it would be a joke to say that it has anything to do with a peak grade 1. I will bring the prince back to the imperial palace tonight. Eunuch Lu made a decision in his heart. At this moment, Prince Li Shang had already attracted the attention of the other princes in the imperial court. In addition, it involved an unknown peerless rank 1. Even a grade 1 great grandmaster like Eunuch Lu felt uneasy at this moment. Although Eunuch Lu felt that the unknown peak grade 1 should have no malice towards Prince Li Shang. Otherwise, Prince Li Shang would have died long ago. But no matter what, only by sending Prince Li Shang back to the imperial palace would Eunuch Lu feel at ease. Eunuch Lu naturally didn't know that Su Qin had seen all the changes in his expression. Su Qin had already locked onto Eunuch Lu's position with the eye of truth when he saw the huge amount of the Empire of Tang's destiny in Prince Li Si's body. In fact, when the group of assassins began to attack and their killing intent filled the air, Eunuch Lu also sensed something and frantically rushed toward the Su residence. Unfortunately, with Eunuch Lu's speed, it was too late by the time he arrived at the Su residence. Because of this, Su Qin directly attacked. Now is not the time to reunite. Su Qin looked at his younger sister, Su Yueyun, and the rest of the family Su. When I become Arhat and become truly invincible in the world, it won't be too late for us to meet again. Su Qin thought silently in his heart. Although he was now a peak grade 1 and had transformed twice, he was still not truly invincible in the world. At least, there were still existences on the same level as Su Qin in this world. For example, the imperial preceptor of the Meng Yuan Empire, Daoist Zhang on Wudong Mountain, and the purple-clothed eunuch in the palace of the Emperor of Tang. Of course, with the countless divine skills he had mastered and his body strengthened by the power of the seal in the back mountain, Su Qin's actual combat strength at this moment was probably able to crush ordinary peak grade 1 and could be said to be invincible below Arhat. But as long as he didn't step into the realm of Arhat, Su Qin felt that something was missing. As for now, as long as Su Qin confirmed that family Su was doing well, it was fine. Next, that night, Eunuch Lu found Prince Li Shang and directly confessed his identity. After half an hour of shock and disbelief, Prince Li Shang could only half believe it. Because with Eunuch Lu's means, if he wanted to kidnap him, there was no need to make up such a reason. Next, Prince Li Shang followed Eunuch Lu to leave family Su, and went to the capital of the Empire of Tang. However, in the end, under Li Shang's strong request, Eunuch Lu could only use the warrant given by the Emperor of Tang to order the Zhangzhou County governor to send martial artists to protect family Su's safety. After Eunuch Lu's explanation, Prince Li Shang also realized that the group of assassins during the day was targeting him. The family Su was just implicated by him. Because of this, Li Shang was worried that the group of assassins would anger the family Su after he left, so he did this. Although Eunuch Lu repeatedly explained that the forces behind the assassins didn't care about a small family like family Su, Li Shang's identity was special, so Eunuch Lu could only comply. And Su Qin, who saw all this, also had a good impression of Prince Li Shang. If ordinary people suddenly learned that they were the bloodline of the high and mighty the Emperor of Tang, they would have long forgotten their surname. But this Li Shang at this moment put family Su's safety first. Obviously, he was a good person. In the end, Prince Li Shang promised Su Yueyun that when the situation there was stable, he would take her and leave with Eunuch Lu that night. The next day, a large number of martial artists sent by the Zhangzhou County governor arrived. The weakest of these martial artists was grade 6, and even the two generals were in the upper realm. The Zhangzhou County governor was obviously frightened and directly sent out all the guards around him. The warrant that Eunuch Lu showed was given by the Emperor of Tang, and represents the will of the Emperor of Tang. How could the Zhangzhou County governor dare to neglect it? At this time, Su Qin finally let out a soft sigh. Everything is over. Su Qin walked slowly on the streets of Yen City. It's time to leave. Now that the family Su is protected by the Zhangzhou County governor's personal guards, it can be said that they are extremely safe. Su Qin doesn't need to stay here. However, before returning to the Shaolin Temple, I can go to the Southern Witch Mountains Demon Sect headquarters to take a look. Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated. Yesterday he signed in at the Demon Sect's headquarters and obtained the Heavenly Demon Policy, A supreme demon art. Su Qin wondered if he could sign in again today. After all, the demon sect headquarters is the only place where Su Qin can sign in besides the Shaolin Temple. A few hours later, snow fluttered all over the sky and slowly fell. Su Qin stood casually in front of the demon sect headquarters, slightly disappointed. It seems that I can only sign in here once. Su Qin's expression was filled with emotion. He felt more and more the preciousness of the Shaolin Temple. Even a place like the demon sect headquarters is only enough for Su Qin to sign in once. But what about the Shaolin Temple? Su Qin has signed in for 15 years. Just how much Dao accumulation did it contain that Su Qin could repeatedly take advantage of it? Like this, it's almost time. Su Qin turned and left. Because it was still early, Su Qin didn't immediately return to the Shaolin Temple. Instead, he planned to walk around and see if there were other places where he could sign in. Soon, Su Qin came to a small town. This town is located at the foot of the southern Wuxia mountain and relies on hunting in the mountains for a living. Su Qin, on the other hand, did not hide his figure. He walked into the town openly. Chapter 49. It's them. A smile appeared on Su Qin's face. Not far away there was a pair of grandfather and grandson sitting there peddling things. This pair of grandfather and grandson was the one that Su Qin asked for directions when he first arrived at southern Wuxia mountain. At that time, Su Qin also reminded them to go back as soon as possible. There would be heavy snow during the day, and it was not safe outside. Su Qin did not expect this pair of grandfather and grandson to live here. As Su Qin looked over, the old man also noticed Su Qin. Master, why are you here? The old man was shocked and immediately trotted over, looking grateful. In fact, the old man was very grateful to Su Qin at this moment. After Su Qin reminded them yesterday, the old man immediately rushed back to the town with his grandson. Sure enough, not long after, it began to snow heavily again. This time the snow was much heavier than any before. If the old man came back a little later, he might really be in danger. Could be said that Su Qin saved the lives of the grandfather and grandson. In this case, how could the old man not be grateful to Su Qin? At this time, the little boy also came over and carefully stood behind the old man, extremely well behaved. After the old man's reminder yesterday, the little boy also realized that Su Qin was a real master. I just passed by, so I came in to have a look. Su Qin said casually. He really just passed by here. He did not lie. So that's how it is. The old man immediately invited Su Qin to sit at his place. While the old man and Su Qin were talking, the other residents of the town came over from afar. These residents had basically never left the town in their lives. They were simple and honest. When they saw Su Qin, an eminent monk in a monk's robe, they all took out their most precious things to give to Su Qin. Su Qin naturally would not accept their things and rejected them one by one with a smile. Master, my surname is Li. You can call me Old Man Li, the old man said very respectfully. Although Su Qin looked young, at most in his 20s, Old Man Li never really regarded Su Qin as a young man. Although Old Li had never been out of the town, he was not completely ignorant. It was rumored that there were some old immortals in the world. These old immortals could live up to 100 years old. But their appearance was no different from that of a young person. At this moment, Su Qin was no different from a celestial being in Old Li's heart. Yesterday, Su Qin stepped on the snow for thousands of miles without leaving a single trace. If this wasn't an immortal, then what was? Got it. Su Qin didn't think much of it. Even if Su Qin knew about Old Li's awe, he wouldn't say anything. Now, he was already a peak grade 1 who had transformed twice. In terms of combat power, he could be said to be the strongest under Arhat. He was indeed no different from the immortal in Old Li's eyes. This is your grandson? Su Qin turned his gaze and looked at the little boy behind Old Li. Under the observation of Su Qin's eyes of truth, the little boy's meridians were clear. If he practiced martial arts, he could step into the middle realm within 10 years. If there was an opportunity in the future, becoming a martial artist in the upper realm was not an extravagant hope. Of course, Su Qin just looked at him a little more, and didn't have any other intentions. After all, with Su Qin's current strength, Even a grade 1 great grandmaster would be a matter of a slap, let alone an upper realm martial artist. Just as Su Qin was about to leave and return to the Shaolin temple, rumble, the earth suddenly began to tremble. Huh. Su Qin frowned slightly. Immediately afterward, a terrified voice sounded. Mountain God is angry. As soon as these words came out, the faces of the people in the town suddenly became as white as paper. The town they live in is under the Southern Witch Mountain. They rely on the Southern Witch Mountain to live. Naturally, they are in awe of the so-called Mountain God. Even old man Li's entire body began to tremble violently when he heard the words Mountain God is angry. His face was filled with a deep sense of despair. Mountain God. Su Qin looked up at the sky, his face slightly dignified. It's not Mountain God, it's an avalanche. After several days of heavy snow, the Southern Witch Mountain has long been piled up with snow. At this moment the snow was rolling down the mountain. Su Qin looked at the Southern Witch Mountain. Endless amounts of snow continued to pour down. Wherever the snow passed, the earth quaked and the mountains shook, shattering everything. Such a power of heaven and earth has exceeded the limit of imagination. It was as if the heavens were angry and wanted to destroy the world. If there is no huge vibration, logically speaking, there shouldn't be an avalanche. Su Qin was not as flustered as the others. With his current body, even if he was buried under the snow mountain, he could still climb out and there would be no danger to his life. Is it because I killed a lot of people at the demon sect headquarters yesterday? Under the transmission of my internal force, it shook somewhere in the Southern Witch Mountain. Because of this, it continued to spread until today, causing this avalanche? Su Qin's thoughts turned quickly, and he determined a certain possibility. Only his terrifying strength of the peak first grade could have a slight possibility of shaking the Southern Witch Mountain. This vibration, under normal circumstances, would not cause any problems. But at this moment, the snow had been piled up for several days. If there was another vibration, it would be like the last straw that broke the balance. The avalanche broke out. And just as Su Qin was thinking, at this moment, the other people in the town had long been scared out of their wits. They had experienced an avalanche before. But those avalanches in the past were incomparably small. They had never been as mighty as this one, almost destroying everything. It's over, it's all over. Someone looked desperate and muttered to himself. If it was any other danger, they could still escape. But under an avalanche, how could they escape? Old Li's face also turned pale. The little boy behind him was so scared that he did not dare to move. Only Su Qin stood there with a calm expression, looking straight at the endless avalanches that filled his field of vision. No one knew what he was thinking. Run quickly. At this moment, someone finally could not help it and subconsciously staggered to the back. Although no matter how far they ran, they would be caught up by the avalanche in an instant. They would just die a little later. But under human instinct, running away was always better than standing there and waiting for death. And in such a short time, the avalanche was already close to the town. Before the avalanche arrived, a piercing chill swept over and shrouded the void. Stimulated by this chill, everyone suddenly shivered and immediately fled in all directions. Run! Old Li held his grandson in his arms and was also ready to escape with the others. And at this moment, Old Li suddenly saw from the corner of his eyes that Su Qin was still standing in the same place, motionless, a sharp contrast with the others. Master, run quickly! Old Li braced himself and pulled Su Qin's arm behind him. However, no matter how hard Old Li tried, Su Qin did not move. It was as if Old Li was not grabbing a person, but a mountain. After all, it's because of me. Su Qin broke free from Old Li. Not only did he not run away, but he also walked in the direction of the avalanche. Master, what are you going to do? Old Li's scalp was numb, and he looked at Su Qin in disbelief. Block it. Su Qin replied calmly as he walked. It was as if the block Su Qin said was not the endless avalanche that could break everything, but the cats and dogs on the side of the road. Master, you! Old Li almost thought that he had misheard. Block it. Block this avalanche? I have. Su Qin said this, paused, and an inexplicable look appeared on his face. I haven't really fought for a long time. After that, under Old Li's incredulous gaze, Su Qin walked out of the town. Rumble. The avalanche swept across the sky. The terrifying shock seemed to break the world and bring it to the end. The next moment, in Old Li's shocked gaze, heaven and earth were enveloped by a dark golden glazed Buddha palm. There were golden adumbra flowers blooming in all directions, majestic and sacred extraordinary. At the same time, infinite Buddha light bloomed as if forming layers of pure land, shining and sheltering everything. And in the center of the pure land, there was a vague figure that was not a Buddha, but more like a Buddha. Chapter 50. The avalanche rolled and swept down with an unstoppable momentum. The earth shook and everything was broken. In front of this true power of heaven and earth, even a grade 1 great grandmaster would be terrified. "Grandpa, are we dead?" The little boy hugged Old Li tightly, his voice trembling. Although he was only a teenager, he also knew that the people in the town could not survive under the avalanche. However, no matter how the little boy called, Old Li, who was hugging him, froze and did not respond. "Grandpa, what's wrong with you?" The little boy summoned the courage to open his eyes and looked up at Old Li. He saw that Old Li's eyes were wide open, and his face was filled with extreme shock. The little boy was puzzled and subconsciously followed Old Li's gaze. However, with this look, the little boy saw a scene that he would never forget in his life. He saw that under the endless avalanche, a dark golden Buddha palm covering the world slowly pressed down, and the whole town seemed to have become one of the boundless pure lands in the dark golden Buddha palm. If one were to look at it from afar, they would see a golden Buddha reaching out its palm to protect the entire town. Buddha's aura filled the air. Golden lotuses bloomed. The little boy could vaguely hear Zen sounds, as if there was a Buddha chanting. Rumble. The next moment, the rolling avalanche washed down. However, under the protection of the dark golden Buddha palm covering the world, the town stood intact in the avalanche, like a pure land in the palm. This is the real Buddha." Old Li's hands trembled and tears flowed down his face. At his age, he already had 1 foot in the coffin. Fame and fortune, the 7 emotions and 6 desires, he had already accepted them. But at this time true awe rose in Old Li's heart, as if he was facing a Buddha. Puff, 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 puff. When the others saw this scene, they knelt down and kowtowed to Su Qin, looking extremely pious. They were not fools. Naturally, they could see that if it weren't for Su Qin, the whole town would have been turned into dust under the avalanche. It can be said that Su Qin is the savior of everyone in this town. In this case, who would not kneel? Who would dare not kneel? Whoosh! Endless avalanches crazily crashed down, but they were all blocked outside of the town. As time passed, the terrifying pressure rapidly increased. However, under this glass Buddha palm that covered the heavens and earth, it didn't seem to have any effect at all. In the center of the Buddha's palm, Su Qin sat cross-legged. His divine sense, physical body, and a small portion of his transformed inner energy slowly collided and fused together, slowly and firmly blocking the avalanche that filled the sky. An hour later, the rolling avalanche began to slow down. The heavy snow that had accumulated in the southern Wuxia mountain for the past few days had basically been emptied. "It's almost over." Su Qin slowly opened his eyes. Under the observation of the eye of truth, he had a clear grasp of the situation. "The might of heaven and earth is indeed terrifying. With my current strength, it's still a bit difficult." Su Qin shook his head slightly. Although the town was basically saved, Su Qin knew very well that the avalanche he was facing was only 100,000th or 100,000th of the real avalanche's power. The avalanche that swept down from the southern Wuxia mountain spread out in all directions for hundreds of miles. The town where Su Qin was located was just a small part of these hundreds of miles. But even so, Su Qin's inner energy and divine sense were also greatly consumed. It could be said that if the current Su Qin encountered 8 or 10 peak grade 1 experts joining forces, he would definitely turn around and run away. "It's about time. It's time to leave." Su Qin glanced around, glanced at the people who were constantly kneeling on the ground and kowtowing, and quietly left. A moment later, as the sun shone, the people kneeling on the ground could not help but raise their heads. "It's over?" The people of the town felt as if they were in a dream. They actually survived that earth-shattering avalanche? "Master, where's the master?" At this moment, Old Li suddenly called out. As soon as these words came out, The others suddenly came to their senses. The reason why they survived the avalanche was entirely because of the young monk. Yeah. Where's the master? Everyone looked around and asked. Old Li, you know the master, do you know where the master went? A middle-aged man looked at Old Li and could not help but ask. Before the avalanche began, he saw Old Li and Su Qin talking. How would I know? Old Li rolled his eyes. In Old Li's eyes, Su Qin at this moment was no different from the legendary Buddha. How could a mere mortal like him know? That's right. The middle-aged man who asked the question reacted. Although because of the avalanche, except for the town, other places were covered with snow and they could not go out at all. But in the end they survived. With the food in the town, if they were frugal, it would not be difficult to survive for a few months. And after a few months it would probably be summer. By that time, the snow outside would have melted long ago. The monk saved us, we can't do nothing. At this time, the middle-aged man who first spoke again. Do nothing? What do you mean? Old Li frowned and asked. He had long been full of true awe for Su Qin, but he did not know how to express it. In Old Li's view, even if the whole town was packed and given to Su Qin would not like it. Even if Old Li thought hard, he could not think of what he could do to repay Su Qin for saving his life. How about every family in our town cast a golden body for the master and worship him day and night? The middle-aged man thought for a while and said. As soon as the words came out, the others immediately nodded. Especially Old Li, his eyes lit up. Hundreds of miles away from the southern Witch Mountain, Su Qin took a step forward, crossing dozens of hundreds of meters, and dared to go in the direction of the Shaolin Temple. Su Qin naturally did not know that because he blocked the avalanche, the people in the town were ready to cast a golden body for him and worship him day and night. Perhaps even if Su Qin knew, he would not care too much. At this moment, Su Qin was holding a large bottle of recover pills in one hand and a large bottle of yun pills in the other. He kept pouring these two pills into his mouth as if he was eating beans. Whether it was the recover pills or the yun pills, as soon as they entered Su Qin's mouth, they were instantly digested by his powerful body and turned into rolling internal force and abundant divine thought, replenishing Su Qin's consumption. If the Bodhiyard's master saw Su Qin's behavior, he would definitely be heartbroken. The recover pill was one of the sacred pills of the Shaolin Temple, and its efficacy was several times that of the small recover pill. Even the Bodhiyard only produced dozens of pills a year. Chapter 51. It's almost done. Su Qin stopped swallowing pills. Whether it is the Great Revitalizing Pill or the Divine Accumulation Pill, they are just a small part of the pills Su Qin has obtained from signing in for 15 years. Through these years of signing in, Su Qin has already achieved pill freedom. No matter how much he eats, he won't even blink his eyes. Just now, when I blocked the avalanche and faced the power of heaven and earth, I seem to have faintly grasped the qi between heaven and earth. Su Qin's divine sense slowly spread out and merged with heaven and earth, feeling something carefully. If a grade 1 great grandmaster wants to go further, in addition to completing the 3 transformations of the body, divine sense and internal strength, he must also grasp the qi between heaven and earth. Compared to the former, the latter is even more difficult. Because whether it is the transformation of the body, internal strength, or the transformation of the spirit, there are traces to follow. A grade 1 great grandmaster knows what direction he should go. If the body is weak, he should forge the body. If the spirit is weak, he should nurture the spirit. If the internal strength is not pure, he should purify it. For a grade 1 great grandmaster, if he wants to complete the 3 transformations, it is at most impossible, not impossible. However, it was completely impossible to grasp that wisp of qi between the heavens and the earth. For thousands of years, many peak grade 1 great grandmasters who have transformed 3 times were abruptly killed. Grasping the qi? Grasping what qi? The concept of qi dynamic was extremely mysterious and profound. There is no specific direction to do it. Even the qi that each peak grade 1 great grandmaster needs to grasp is different, and there is no way to remind him. Originally, Su Qin was going to wait for his internal strength to transform, and then observe the heaven and earth with the eyes of truth, to capture the qi. Anyway, Su Qin has a lot of shoyuan, so he can afford to wait. However, what Su Qin did not expect was that this time, by directly facing the power of heaven and earth, he was able to faintly perceive the location of the qi. In other words, as long as Su Qin's internal strength completes the transformation, there will be no obstacles between him and Arhat. Ha 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 ha. Awesome, this is awesome. Su Qin was in a good mood. His qi and blood surged. In this snowy world he was like a scorching furnace. All the snowflakes quickly melted when they were within 100 meters of Su Qin. Southern Witch Mountain. At the foot of the Southern Witch Mountain, everything was destroyed because of the avalanche, but at the top of the Southern Witch Mountain it was not affected much because of the terrain. At this very moment, a figure suddenly jumped out from under the accumulated snow. The figure panted heavily and looked in the direction of the demon sect's headquarters. His eyes were filled with great fear. This figure was called Kuan Kong, a disciple of the demon sect. Dead. The sect master is dead. The elders are dead. They're all dead. Kuan Kong's voice trembled and his face was ashen. Yesterday, he had seen with his own eyes a young monk in a gray robe enter the hall where many elders and sect masters of the demon sect were in seclusion. At that time, Kuan Kong had thought that the young monk would definitely die. After all, how could a monk from the Shaolin Temple come out of the demon sect's headquarters alive? However, just as Kuan Kong dozed off when he entered the hall, he found a river of blood. All the elders of the demon sect died on the spot. Even the demon sect's sect master, who had entered the Grade 1 Great Grandmaster realm, had died. When Kuan Kong saw this, he felt his scalp tingle. Without any hesitation, he fled far away from the demon sect's headquarters. He found a remote place and hid under a pile of snow with the breath-holding technique. Kuan Kong was scared. He was really scared. An existence that could easily slaughter all the upper realm elders of the demon sect, including the sect master, was not something that Kuan Kong could imagine. It's that monk. Kuan Kong suddenly shuddered. Before the death of many elders of the demon sect, only the young monk had entered the hall. A holy monk. That monk is a holy monk. Kuan Kong whispered to himself. As a disciple of the demon sect, Kuan Kong was clear about the most basic level of martial Tao. A holy monk of the Buddhist sect corresponds to a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster. The demon sect is finished. Kuan Kong's heart was cold. Although he survived, once the news of the fall of many upper realm elders of the demon sect spread out, the fate of the demon sect disciples would be to be wiped out by the righteous sects. The righteous sects will not let go of this opportunity to completely eradicate the demon sect. What should I do? Kuan Kong's expression was gloomy. As a disciple of the demon sect cultivation technique in his body cannot be hidden from the righteous sects. Unless Kuan Kong is prepared to never fight again in his life and be a farmer. No. There is still hope for the demon sect. Just when Kuan Kong was in despair, he suddenly thought of something in his mind. He once heard from an upper realm elder of the demon sect that the previous sect master of the demon sect was a man of great talent. But later he wanted to break through and left the demon sect, choosing to enter seclusion. It was precisely because of this that in the confrontation between the demon sect and the righteous sects for decades, the demon sect was forced to retreat. In the end, they were squeezed into Yong province. Thinking of this, hope finally rose in Kuan Kong's heart. If he can find the previous sect master of the demon sect and have him return to the demon sect, not only will the demon sect not be finished, but it can also prosper again. With the previous sect master of the demon sect at that time, he may be able to find a holy monk of the Shaolin Temple and take revenge. I remember the elder said that more than 50 years ago, the previous sect master of the demon sect went to the Western Desert alone, and there was no news of him since. In other words, the place where he entered seclusion is very likely to be in the Western Desert. Kuan Kong thought quickly in his heart. The Western Desert is vast. Finding someone in such a large place is tantamount to ascending to the sky. But Kuan Kong has no other choice. Only by inviting the previous sect master of the demon sect can he reorganize the demon sect. At the same time, Su Qin also rushed back to the Shaolin Temple. There are monks patrolling outside the Shaolin Temple. An ordinary martial artist can't sneak in at all. But for Su Qin it was not a problem at all. I'm finally back. Su Qin quietly came to the chores yard, entered his room and sighed. Although he had only left the Shaolin Temple for less than 2 days, it felt like months had passed. The Shaolin Temple is still the best. It's safe. Su Qin listened to the leisurely sound of the bell and sighed softly. No one should know that I've been out for a while. Su Qin glanced at the room and guessed in his heart. As a senior disciple who has been in the temple for 15 years, Su Qin didn't need to clean every day. And this time, before he went out, Su Qin went to the new chores yard head and took a 2-day break on the grounds that he was not feeling well. The new chores yard head had a good relationship with Su Qin, so he agreed immediately. Since I'm back, I'll go to the sutra depository to sign in first. Chapter 52. For Su Qin, the daily sign-in opportunity will never be wasted. One must know that sign-in opportunities will not accumulate. Once you miss today, you will miss it forever. Thinking of this, Su Qin immediately prepared to go to the scripture pavilion. Calculating the time, Huiwen should have broken through grade 2 and entered the grade 1 Great Grandmaster realm, right? Su Qin opened eyes of truth and looked in the direction of the Bodhi court. Sure enough, in the depths of the Bodhi court, there was a faint aura of a grade 1 Great Grandmaster slowly stabilizing. A year ago, Abbot Huiwen was eager to break through, which led to cultivation deviation. If it weren't for Su Qin's help, the Shaolin Temple would have already been replaced by another abbot. After the last lesson, Abbot Huiwen learned his lesson and was no longer in a hurry to succeed. Instead, he took it step by step. As a result, with Abbot Huiwen's foundation and accumulation, it is only a matter of time before he steps into the grade 1 Great Grandmaster realm. According to Su Qin's guess, at most a year later, when Huiwen has fully grasped the power of a grade 1 Great Grandmaster, he will come out. The Shaolin Temple finally has a grade 1 martial artist. Su Qin was satisfied. Although a grade 1 Great Grandmaster is far from enough in front of him, the Shaolin Temple now has a powerhouse of this level. If there is any crisis in the future, Su Qin will not be needed. The stronger the Shaolin Temple is, the more relieved Su Qin can sign in. He doesn't have to worry about the Shaolin Temple being gone when he wakes up. Unfortunately, with Huiwen's aptitude, entering grade 1 is his limit. If he wants to go further and transform his body, divine sense, and internal strength, it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Su Qin shook his head slightly. Although grade 1 Great Grandmasters all know what to do next, knowing is one thing. Whether or not they can do it is another matter. For example, the grade 1 Great Grandmaster Juka Sanrin, who died of old age in the Thousand Buddhist Temple, stepped into the grade 1 Great Grandmaster realm at the age of 79. After more than 100 years, he was trapped in grade 1. Of course, compared to the metamorphosis of his physical body, mind, and inner strength, grasping the wisp of aura in the world was even more illusory. However, Su Qin had already solved this problem, which had stumped most of the peak rank 1 since ancient times. On this trip out, not only did I sign in and obtain the Demonic Path's supreme secret technique, the Heavenly Demon strategy, but I also took the opportunity to directly face the power of heaven and earth to grasp that wisp of aura. A smile emerged on Su Qin's face. From a certain perspective, grasping that strand of qi had saved Su Qin at least 10 or 20 years of time. Just as Su Qin was deep in thought, he arrived at the scripture pavilion. System, sign in for me. Su Qin looked around and muttered in his heart. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. You have received the Dharma Swordsmanship. Sword technique? Su Qin raised his eyebrows. In the past 15 years, he had obtained countless secret techniques from the scripture pavilion, but there were not many sword techniques, only less than 100. After all, the weapons of the Shaolin Temple are generally sticks and the like, or they are directly barehanded, and they rarely use sharp weapons. Dharma. Su Qin's heart moved. Dharma is a certain ancestor of the Shaolin Temple thousands of years ago. He is known as the only legendary figure in the history of the Shaolin Temple. Ancestor Dharma. Su Qin looks slightly emotional. Even for the Shaolin Temple, Ancestor Dharma is extremely mysterious because no one knows how strong Ancestor Dharma is. Grade 1 Great Grandmaster? Peak Grade 1 Great Grandmaster? Or a Grade 1 Great Perfection that has transformed 3 times? Or even an existence that directly achieved the Arhat fruit? Wang. At this moment, a lot of insights about the Dharma swordsmanship poured into Su Qin's mind. In an instant, the various subtleties of the Dharma swordsmanship constantly collided in Su Qin's mind, and finally faintly formed a sword light that can break everything. After a while, Su Qin slowly opened his eyes. Ancestor Dharma, I'm afraid that he has really achieved the Arhat fruit, Su Qin exclaimed in his heart. The level involved in this Dharma swordsmanship, even in Su Qin's eyes, is extremely brilliant. Just through this swordsmanship, Su Qin has already concluded that the height of Ancestor Dharma is probably completely above the 9th grade martial Tao. Time passed slowly. A year passed in a blink of an eye. During this year, Su Qin's life did not have the slightest ups and downs. Time passed slowly. After this year, Su Qin spent almost all his time purifying his internal strength except for signing in. At the current speed, the transformation of my internal strength will be completed in a few years at most, Su Qin judged in his heart. On this day, after signing in outside the Bodhi court, Su Qin was casually sweeping the ground after signing in. Suddenly, an aura rose from the depths of the Bodhi court. Not long after this aura appeared, the court heads of the Shaolin Temple quickly rushed over and gathered outside the Bodhi court. This is the warrior monastery's court head's eyes were filled with surprise and surprise. He seemed to have guessed something, but he was not sure. The other court heads were the same. Their expressions were mixed with disbelief. Half an hour later, Abbot Huiwen and the Bodhi court head walked out together. The Bodhi court head was still the same, but Abbot Huiwen's aura was much deeper. Abbot Yu, the warrior monastery's court head, wanted to say something but hesitated, looking at Abbot Huiwen carefully. The Bodhi court head next to him couldn't help but say directly, "The abbot has broken through smoothly and has become a holy monk." When these words came out, the court heads wept with joy. 60 years. It has been 60 years. Since the death of the last holy monk of the Shaolin Temple 60 years ago, the Shaolin Temple has not given birth to a grade 1A holy monk. In this case, although the Shaolin Temple barely retains the title of a great sect by virtue of its heritage, the pressure it is under can be imagined. In the world, only a force with a grade 1 great grandmaster is qualified to be called a great sect. If there is no grade 1A holy monk, the Shaolin Temple's title as a great sect will not be justified. Great. The Arhat court head looked excited. Abbot, since you have stepped into grade 1, does the Shaolin Temple need to announce it to the world? Generally speaking, grade 1 great grandmasters have a high status in today's martial arts world. The birth of any grade 1 great grandmaster can be announced to the world. No need. Abbot Huiwen shook his head. The world is so big, and there are so many powerhouses. Not to mention the outside world, even within the temple, I am far inferior to a holy monk. How would I dare to announce it to the world? Abbot Huiwen said slowly with a face full of emotion. When the court heads heard this, they were suddenly shocked. In their view, a holy monk of the temple is indeed powerful, but now Abbot Huiwen has also become a holy monk. You are a holy monk and I am also a holy monk. Everyone is a holy monk. It stands to reason that even if there is a gap, it should not be too big. Chapter 53. Abbot Huiwen glanced around and knew the doubts in the court heads' hearts. Before I stepped into grade 1, I thought the same as you, but now. Abbot Huiwen paused before continuing. It wasn't until now that I realized how great the ancestor of a holy monk was. Compared with him, I'm afraid I'm not even a frog at the bottom of a well. Huiwen's face was bitter, but there was also a trace of awe. Not to mention the other actions of the ancestor of a holy monk. Just a year ago, the other party saved Abbot Huiwen from cultivation deviation. This kind of means is something that Abbot Huiwen will never be able to achieve in his life. In all honesty, Abbot Huiwen is also a grade 1 great grandmaster, but if he were to save a martial artist who had cultivation deviation, the only way is to barely hang on to his life at the cost of a great injury to his vitality. As for more, Abbot Huiwen can't do it. The human body is very complex. After cultivation deviation, the martial artist's meridians will become chaotic, and their internal force will go berserk. Even if it is a grade 1 great grandmaster, if they are not careful, not only will they not be able to save the other party, they may even accelerate the degree of cultivation deviation. But what about the ancestor of a holy monk? Not only did he save Abbot Huiwen's life, but he also completely recovered him. This ability to reverse life and death is not an exaggeration. When the other court heads heard Abbot Huiwen's words, they looked at each other, and their hearts were in turmoil. They did not expect that Abbot Huiwen's evaluation of the ancestor of a holy monk would be so high, especially the disciplinary court head. At first he thought that Abbot Huiwen was being modest, but after listening for a long time, he found that Abbot Huiwen was completely sincere. What's with the long faces? My Shaolin temple has such an ancestor. Shouldn't it be a good thing? The Bodhi court head saw the expressions of the court heads and coldly snorted. Suddenly, the other court heads suddenly woke up. That's right. Even if what Abbot Huiwen said was true, and the strength of a holy monk was unfathomable, wasn't this great news for the Shaolin temple? Thinking of this, the court heads became excited again. What all the court heads, including Abbot Huiwen, did not know was that their conversation had fallen into the ears of Su Qin, who was sweeping the floor not far away. A holy monk? Su Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Although he often heard the word, a holy monk, from other disciples of the Shaolin temple, Su Qin found it quite interesting that even Abbot Huiwen addressed him as senior. Next, after Abbot Huiwen chatted with the court heads for a while, they parted ways and returned to their respective courtyards to do their own things. Abbot Huiwen becoming a grade 1A holy monk was certainly a happy event, but he couldn't forget other things because of this. Su Qin also returned to the handyman court. As soon as he arrived at the handyman court, Su Qin saw some disciples gathered together and whispered something. Have you heard? The demon sect headquarters in Yongzhou was said to have been wiped out by a nameless holy monk. Many elders of the demon sect in the upper realm, and even the sect master of the demon sect, died. The huge demon sect collapsed overnight, and countless disciples of the demon sect fled for their lives. It was miserable. A young novice monk in his teens said quickly, and his tone revealed great shock. Su Qin was slightly stunned when he heard this. He clearly remembered that he had done this a year ago. How come people were still talking about it? However, Su Qin thought about it and understood. This world was not like Su Qin's previous life. There was no network transmission, and the speed of the news was naturally greatly reduced. In particular, Yongzhou was thousands of miles away from the Shaolin temple. Perhaps Abbot Huiwen and the court heads had special intelligence channels and knew about this matter a long time ago. But these novice monks obviously didn't have such conditions. Just as Su Qin was thinking about it, these disciples began to talk again. Is it true? There are many experts in the demon sect headquarters. If it was so easy to wipe them out, how could the demon sect have existed for so many years? Of course it's true. I tell you, the source of the news is absolutely possible. This is what my uncle from Yongzhou said. It's absolutely true. The novice monk who spoke first patted his chest and promised, I don't know which ancestor of the Shaolin temple is a holy monk who wiped out the demon sect headquarters to suppress the demon sect with his own strength. It's simply a legend. Many disciples whispered to each other with admiration in their eyes. Yes, I hope that one day I can have the strength of a holy monk. The teenage novice monk's face was full of yearning. Stop dreaming. Even if you cultivate for 1,000 years, you can't reach the level of a holy monk. A disciple next to him rolled his eyes and said, That's right. If you have the time to dream, why don't you work hard? Maybe you can ask the court head to transfer you to the warrior monastery or the Arhat monastery. Well, how dare you laugh at me? The teenage novice monk was suddenly unhappy. At this moment, these disciples saw that Su Qin was walking towards them. They didn't dare to continue the conversation and dispersed. For these disciples, Su Qin's qualifications were very high. He could even speak to the court head. Coupled with the age gap and the fact that Su Qin usually didn't talk, they were afraid of Su Qin from the bottom of their hearts. Su Qin didn't care about these things. For Su Qin, the gossip of the disciples was something he usually listened to. He didn't take it seriously at all. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years had passed. In these 3 years, as Su Qin continued to purify his inner strength, he almost felt that the transformation of his inner strength was about to end. Just a little bit more. It should be today. Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated. At night, He directly sneaked into the forbidden area of the back mountain and prepared to complete the transformation of his inner strength here. The back mountain was the forbidden area of the Shaolin Temple. Coupled with the seal left by Tuarahan 900 years ago, it could be said to be absolutely safe and hidden. Whoosh! Whoosh! Su Qin sat cross-legged, his inner strength surging in his body. Buzz! He saw a cluster of invisible flames burning slowly, constantly purifying his inner strength. He didn't know how much time had passed. At a certain moment, the inner strength in Su Qin's body seemed to have been purified to a certain qualitative change, and all of it shrank in his dantian. Then, a drop of completely liquid inner strength appeared. Compared to the previous gaseous inner strength, the liquid inner strength was obviously much stronger, and there was a faint pressure rising. This drop of liquid inner strength seemed to have caused a chain reaction. After that, drop after drop of liquid inner strength continued to appear and quickly integrated into every part of Su Qin's body, constantly running between his tendons and meridians. After a few hours, Su Qin leisurely opened his eyes. The depths of his pupils seemed to be hanging upside down, slowly rotating. At this time, Su Qin's inner strength, divine sense, and body had all completed the transformation. The three elements combined into one, and he became grade 1 great perfection. Whoosh! Chapter 54. Finally, grade 1 great perfection. Su Qin slowly got up, his eyes calm, and said softly, Grade 1 great grandmaster, after the transformation of divine sense, body, and internal strength, there is no room for improvement, and it is grade 1 great perfection. What is grade 1 great perfection? It is when one has cultivated to the extreme in the grade 1 realm, and one step further, it is the Arhat realm of Buddhism, or the legend realm of Jianghu. This is grade 1 great perfection. Of course, if you want to truly achieve the Arhat realm or the legend realm, you still need to grasp the qi between the heavens and earth. However, this qi has no effect on the strength of a grade 1 great perfection. A grade 1 great perfection who has grasped this qi has the same combat power as a grade 1 great perfection who has not grasped it. The transformation of body, divine sense, and internal strength has made me without any shortcomings. At this time, I can really be called the strongest under Arhat. There seems to be an inexplicable vortex slowly rotating in the depths of Su Qin's pupils. His body's qi and blood are unprecedentedly prosperous. His divine sense is abundant, and it can almost affect reality. His internal strength is completely liquefied, and every drop of it is heavy, constantly circulating in his meridians. At this moment, Su Qin can immediately attack the Arhat realm and reach a height that countless martial artists in the world can only look up to in their lifetime. But Su Qin did not do so. Abbot Huiwen's lesson was a lesson in front of him. With Abbot Huiwen's foundation and accumulation, stepping into grade 1 should not be a problem, but because he was anxious for success, he finally suffered qi deviation and almost died. The difference between Su Qin and Abbot Huiwen is, when Abbot Huiwen suffered qi deviation, Su Qin saved him, but if Su Qin suffers qi deviation, it can be said that no one in the world can save him. Even if Tuarahan comes back to life, he may not be able to save Su Qin. No rush. Take it slow. After a few months, adjust my mentality to the best, and then prepare for the breakthrough. Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated. At this moment, his physical body, spiritual sense, and inner strength had been completely perfected. He could not improve any further and only needed to adjust his mentality. In the following period of time, Su Qin had completely put down his cultivation. Other than signing in every day, he was like a monk sweeping the floor, waking up at sunrise and resting at sunset. He recited the Buddhist scriptures with the other disciples. He listened attentively to the teachings of the head abbot. Meanwhile, deep in the Western Desert, the Western Desert was located in the far west of the continent, bordering the Immensity Sea. If the Immensity Sea was still inhabited, then the Western Desert was a complete forbidden zone for life. Everything within a radius of 1,000,000 miles was a barren desert. Even a martial artist would starve to death due to the lack of water and food if they were trapped in the Western Desert and could not find their way. At this very moment, evil cult disciple Kuan Kong was walking in the depths of Western Desert. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, emitting a terrifying amount of heat. If Kuan Kong was not a rank for martial artist and could circulate his inner strength to slow down the loss of water in his body, he would have been reduced to a dried corpse by now. "Oh Devil Lord, if you don't appear, I'm really going to die here." Kuan Kong's lips were dry and cracked, and his aura was extremely weak. More than 4 years ago, all the higher-ups of the upper realm of the demon sect were wiped out overnight by a holy monk. Kuan Kong then thought of the previous master of the demon sect who came to the western desert for seclusion. In order to revive the demon sect, Kuan Kong came to the western desert without hesitation, wanting to find the previous master of the demon sect and ask him to come out and protect the disciples of the demon sect. But unfortunately, for years, Kuan Kong walked in the western desert for 4 years. Not to mention the previous master of the demon sect, he didn't even see a single person. Is my demon sect destined to decline and I'm going to die here? Kuan Kong knelt on the ground, his eyes full of despair. After staying in this damned place for 4 years, not only did Kuan Kong suffer great physical torture, but his spirit was also ravaged like never before. If it weren't for the obsession in his heart, Kuan Kong would have given up long ago. Suddenly, at this moment, rumble! A huge roar came. Kuan Kong subconsciously looked up and saw a sandstorm that seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. In the western desert, the most terrible thing was not the lack of water or food, but encountering such natural disasters. Even if it was a martial artist in the upper realm, under such a scale of sandstorm they would be crushed. Fine. Even if I die, I can't die of thirst or starvation. Kuan Kong seemed to have figured out something and stood up reluctantly. Not only did he not escape, but he also walked in the direction of the sandstorm. However, as Kuan Kong continued to approach the sandstorm, he suddenly noticed something from the corner of his eyes. That is, Kuan Kong's face changed greatly, as if he had seen an incredible scene. In the depths of the sandstorm, a black dot slowly walked over. Wherever this black dot went, the extremely violent sand and dust would all avoid it. The black dot walked quickly, and one could vaguely see that it was a man in a black robe. Under Kuan Kong's incredulous gaze, the black-robed man stopped in front of him. "Blood transformation art? You are a disciple of my demon sect?" The black-robed man looked at Kuan Kong and said slowly. His voice was a little hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken for a long time. "Demon Lord. You are the Demon Lord." Kuan Kong's heart was set off monstrous waves. Without hesitation, he knelt on the ground again and shouted, "Demon sect disciple Kuan Kong greets the Demon Lord." "Demon Lord?" A smile appeared on the black-robed man's face. "No one has called me that for a long time. Speak. Why are you looking for me?" The black-robed man looked at Kuan Kong and said slowly. He had stayed in the western desert for 50 years, tempering himself day and night with the harsh environment here. He almost forgot the passage of time and even forgot that there was a demon sect outside. "Demon Lord, my demon sect has been destroyed." Kuan Kong raised his head and said with a tragic expression, "Destroyed?" The black-robed man's eyes narrowed slightly. Although the black-robed man didn't care about the demon sect, he was still the former demon sect master. For the black-robed man, the demon sect was like his private property. He didn't care about it, but if others came to destroy it, it would be a provocation to the black-robed man. "Demon Lord, more than 4 years ago, a nameless holy monk from the Shaolin Temple came to our door and wiped out many upper realm elders and sect master at that time." Kuan Kong didn't dare to add any details and told the truth. "What is the strength of this generation's demon sect master?" the black-robed man asked faintly. Kuan Kong hesitated for a while and said, "At that time, the sect master should have stepped into grade 1 great grandmaster." "Interesting. It's interesting." The black-robed man heard this and said calmly, "The demon sect cultivation techniques are extreme. Even if one has just entered grade 1 great grandmaster, they can still exert the combat power of peak grade 1. To be able to kill a demonic sect rank 1 so easily and capture all the other elders in one fell swoop, that nameless holy monk should be a peak rank 1 who has undergone metamorphosis." Not only did the black-robed man's face not show any fear, but it was full of joy. "When I stepped into the western desert, I used the harsh environment to polish myself day and night. I never slacked off for a moment." The black-robed man's voice became louder and louder. and eventually turned into a roar of panic that spread in all directions. In the past 50 years my body has transformed, and my internal strength has also transformed. I only need to transform my divine sense to enter the great perfection realm. The black-robed man's eyes were like lightning, as if cutting through the void. However, it is extremely difficult to transform my divine sense. For me, only through a life and death battle between powerhouses of the same level can I have a glimmer of hope. When the black-robed man said this, the aura around him had completely risen. I'd like to see if that nameless a holy monk from the Shaolin Temple can give me the pressure of life and death. Chapter 55. Demon Lord. Kuan Kong subconsciously hit his forehead on the ground, not daring to look directly at the black-robed man. In front of the terrifying aura of the black-robed man, Kuan Kong only felt that he was a small boat in the sea and could be sunk by the waves at any time. Transformation of the physical body, transformation of the inner force. Kuan Kong only felt his mind go blank. Although he is only a martial artist in the middle realm, as a demon sect disciple, he is still clear about the division of the Grade 1 Great Grandmaster realm. If a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster wants to continue to become stronger, he can only start with the body, divinity, and internal strength. Whether it is the body, internal strength, or divinity, one of the three transformations is peak Grade 1. In the present world, there are only a few known peak Grade 1, such as the imperial teacher of the Meng Yuan dynasty and Taoist Zhang of Wudong true martial lineage. Kuan Kong did not expect that the previous demon sect master not only became a peak Grade 1 in the past 50 years, but also transformed his body, divinity, and internal strength. Such terrifying strength has already exceeded the imagination of ordinary martial artists. Except for the fact that he can't fly, he is almost invincible in the world. A holy monk nameless. The young monk in a gray robe inexplicably appeared in Kuan Kong's mind. He just took a look at him from a distance, but he did not expect that the image of the other party would be like a brand, firmly engraved in his heart. This time the demon lord has made a move. My demon sect's deep hatred will all be returned. Kuan Kong's eyes flashed with a trace of joy. Shaolin Temple. The ancient bell rang. In front of the Bodhi court. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the medicinal pill, barrier-breaking pill. A cold, mechanical voice sounded in Su Qin's ears. Barrier-breaking pill? Su Qin nodded slightly. Barrier-breaking pill is a medicinal pill that specializes in breaking through martial arts bottlenecks. Of course, this medicinal pill can't ignore any bottleneck. Generally speaking, taking a barrier-breaking pill from the lower realm to the middle realm can increase the possibility of breaking through by 10%. Don't underestimate this 10% possibility. It is unknown how many martial artists in the lower realm are stuck in a bottleneck because of this 10% possibility. As for breaking through from the middle 3 realms to the upper 3 realms, the effect wasn't that great. No one knows whether the barrier-breaking pill is useful when a Grade 1 Great Perfection breaks through to the realm of Arhat. But it was better than nothing. With Su Qin's current strength, most of the pills that could increase his strength had no effect on him. The barrier-breaking pill was already considered rare. After signing in, Su Qin cleaned the Bodhi court for half a day, and then prepared to return to the handyman court. It's almost done. Su Qin thought to himself as he walked slowly along the shady path of the Shaolin Temple. After several months of recuperation, Su Qin had completely integrated himself into the identity of a sweeping monk. His state of mind was incomparably calm and unperturbed. It could be said that the current Su Qin was at his peak in the past 30 years. Should I leave something for the Shaolin Temple before I make the breakthrough? Su Qin passed by the Hall of Great Strength and looked at the golden body of Buddha enshrined inside, his thoughts fluctuating. Unknowingly, he had been in the Shaolin Temple for almost 20 years. From a 10-year-old child at the beginning, he has grown into a Grade 1 Great Perfection who can overlook the world. Forget it. The Shaolin Temple has been open for thousands of years, and many Arhat existences have walked out. If the later generations are really incompetent, it will be meaningless no matter how many I keep. Su Qin shook his head slightly. He was very open-minded. A moment later, Su Qin returned to the handyman court. Many young novice monks in their teens were talking and laughing as they walked over. When they saw Su Qin, they immediately said cautiously, "Greetings, Uncle Zhengguan." "Greetings, Martial Uncle Zhengguan." The group of young novice monks carefully bowed to him. "So I'm already at the level of martial uncle?" Su Qin couldn't help but laugh inwardly. In the world of martial arts, 20 years was considered an era. The Shaolin Temple also takes 20 years as a generation. Su Qin has been in the Shaolin Temple for nearly 20 years. Although he is still a sweeping monk, his seniority has increased by a level. Today, the new disciples of the Shaolin Temple are all of the Xian generation, which is one generation lower than the Zhan generation. Shortly after Su Qin returned, the new handyman court head came to the door. "Court head." Su Qin looked at the new court head and said, "Since the death of the old court head, Su Qin and the new court head have been getting along well. In addition, the Shaolin Temple is not a place for intrigue. If there is nothing to do, no one will care about Su Qin." Sometimes, when Su Qin went to the back mountain for a few days, the new court head would only ask a few questions and not say much. Su Qin has been in the temple for nearly 20 years. The new court head will not blame Su Qin too much unless someone is against him. The Bodhi court is recruiting disciples recently. Do you want to have a try? The new court head of the handyman court said directly. 20 years ago, when Su Qin first entered the Shaolin Temple, he was found to have no aptitude for martial arts. Because of this, he was assigned to the handyman court. When the Bodhi court recruited disciples this time, the new court head of the handyman court thought of Su Qin immediately. The Bodhi court is an important place for refining elixirs in the Shaolin Temple. It also doesn't pay much attention to martial arts aptitude. If Su Qin went to the Bodhi court, it should be much better than sweeping the floor now. One must know that the Bodhi court has always been the most mysterious court of the Shaolin Temple, and they rarely recruit disciples from outside. Now there is an opportunity which is really rare. Court head. "I'm old and I don't want to move." Su Qin's eyes were calm as he said. Su Qin really has no interest in the Bodhi court. After 20 years of signing in, Su Qin has put countless elixirs in the system space. In Su Qin's eyes, the Bodhi court is not attractive at all. If he wants elixirs, can't he just sign in there? Why go through so much trouble to refine them? Of course, Su Qin doesn't refine elixirs not because he doesn't know how to refine elixirs. In the past 20 years, Su Qin has signed in at least hundreds of secret books related to alchemy in the scripture pavilion. Okay. The new court head nodded slightly and didn't say anything more. A few more days passed. Back mountain forbidden area. Su Qin sat cross-legged. "I can't wait any longer." Su Qin's expression was calm, and he made a decision in his heart. The first drum of energy, the second will weaken, and the third will be exhausted. At this moment, Su Qin has already reached the peak. If he continues to delay, his state may even begin to decline. Arhat's Buddhahood tonight. Su Qin waved his hand, and hundreds of thousands of bottles of elixirs suddenly appeared in front of him. These elixirs were specially selected by Su Qin, and they may help him break through this time. For example, barrier breaking pill, ice heart pill, essence cultivating pill, and so on. Although it has long been recorded in the ancient books of the Shaolin Temple that one can only rely on themselves to achieve Arhat's Buddhahood, and the effect of external forces is almost negligible. But Su Qin's personality is cautious. Whether it is useful or not, he will prepare it first. Arhat. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.